At the foot of the Yunza Mountains, Suning jolts awake with a splitting headache as a flood of someone else's memories crashes into his mind. When the pain finally settles, Suning realizes the impossible. He has transmigrated into another world and another boy's body. The inherited memories tell him this is a brutal martial world, and the original Suning died after slipping while risking his life to grab a valuable spirit herb. Stuck in a world of sect fights, bandits, and deadly beasts, Suning grimly understands that an ordinary person can be crushed here. He checks his battered body, finds he can still move, and spots the spirit herb the dead boy died trying to take. The plant is jasper grass, a spirit medicine worth more than 500 taels, enough money to change a farmer's life. Just as he leans in to examine it, a bright panel flashes into his sight with a strange prompt asking whether to absorb its energy. A second panel shows his name, his Gale knife technique at beginner level, and a familiar plus sign, making him realize this is the game-like martial arts panel from his old life. The shock turns into hope as Suning decides this strange cheat might be his only way to survive and rise in this world. He chooses yes, and the panel confirms that the jasper grass's energy has been absorbed. His available energy jumps to 6, and the precious jasper grass instantly loses its color and withers in his hand. Suning immediately focuses on the plus sign beside Gale knife technique and tries to spend energy on it. The panel asks for 3 energy to improve the skill, and Suning agrees without hesitation because he had been stuck at beginner level for years. In an instant, Gale knife technique rises to elementary, cutting his energy down to 3. The upgrade doesn't feel abstract at all. A flood of hard-earned knife experience settles into his body like he trained for years. He snatches up his hatchet and tests the new skill, and the simple mountain tool suddenly cuts the air with real technique. Breathing hard after the set, Suning is exhilarated because what should have taken years just happened in a second. Hungry to go further, he tries to upgrade Gale knife technique again right away. But the next level needs 6 energy, and with only 3 left, Suning has to stop there for now. He reins himself in and decides this is still enough proof that he can grow stronger if he finds more spirit resources later. With the sun already dropping, Suning starts gathering the ordinary herbs spilled from his basket so he can head home. He tests a common herb for energy too, but this time the panel gives him nothing, proving normal plants won't power him up. Armed with his basket and hatchet, Suning carefully retraces the route down the dangerous mountain edge where beasts often roam. He makes it back safely after half an hour and finally sees Tao village ahead in the fading light. The sight of the village brings back more of the dead boy's life. Suning and his sister were refugees from a village destroyed by horse bandits, and were later taken in here. His sister Su Lian eventually married Tao Yunchuan, which is how the 2 siblings became part of Tao village at all. Even so, standing at the gate now, Suning hesitates because this family is real to the original owner but still unfamiliar to him. He forces himself to step through, knowing he has to face this new life sooner or later. Following the inherited memories, he threads through the large village until he reaches a plain family courtyard. When he opens the door, he finds a broad-shouldered man chopping wood with stiff, awkward movements. The man is Tao Yunchuan, his brother-in-law, and despite his limp and old injuries he greets Suning with easy warmth and tells him to hand over the herbs and rest. As soon as he gets close, Tao Yunchuan notices Suning's torn clothes and scraped skin and asks if he fell on the mountain. Suning says it was just an accidental fall, and Tao Yunchuan is visibly relieved when he hears the injuries are not serious. The talk draws out Su Lian from the kitchen, tense and worried the second she hears her little brother got hurt. Suning tries to calm her, and only after checking him closely does Su Lian let herself believe the wounds are only superficial. She gently tells him to change clothes because dinner is ready, and Suning slips away to his room still feeling awkward around this borrowed family. Once he's gone, Tao Yunchuan sinks into guilt and blames his own weakness for making Suning work so hard even after reaching marriageable age. Su Lian immediately shuts that down and reminds her husband that he saved her and Suning from dying on the streets, promising their life will get better. Up in his room, Suning expects a moment alone but finds a little girl with pigtails sitting on his bed and playing with wooden toys. She lights up and calls him uncle, and Suning remembers this is Tao Tao, the daughter of Su Lian and Tao Yunchuan. Tao Tao asks why he came back so late, but before Suning can answer, she notices the blood and holes in his pant leg. Instead of panicking, she leans in and blows on the wound exactly the way her mother does for her, trying to make it hurt less. That small act breaks Suning's tension, and he smiles for real as he tells her it doesn't hurt anymore. When he tells her to go eat first, Tao Tao suddenly digs out a few green dates and proudly stuffs them into his hands because she had been saving them for him. After she runs off, Suning looks at the dates, takes a bite, and gets hit with an intensely sour mouthful that almost ruins the touching moment. Still, as darkness settles outside, Suning realizes this strange world already feels a little less distant than it did this morning. After changing clothes and rubbing ointment on his cuts, Suning joins the family for a sparse dinner in the main room. One look at the meal tells him the household is poorer than he first realized, despite Tao village itself being prosperous. As Su Lian splits the bread and gives the larger pieces to Suning and Tao Yunchuan, Suning feels a stab of guilt over the jasper grass he already used up. The meal stays quiet, and when it's over Suning retreats to his room under the excuse of being tired. Lying awake that night, he turns the family's poverty over in his head until guilt hardens into one clear goal. He needs to find a way to earn money. The next morning he wakes late to a quiet house because Tao Yunchuan has gone to the village rice shop and Su Lian has already left for tailoring work. Tao is still asleep, so Suning leaves her be, cleans up, and fills his stomach with leftover flatbread before going out. He sorts the herbs he gathered yesterday, packs them neatly into a basket, and heads to the village medicinal shop to sell them like the old Suning always did. At the shop he is welcomed by Guiyi, the friendly young manager who has always treated him fairly. The two outsiders of Tao village share an easy rapport, but Guiyi clearly landed in a much more secure life through his wealthy merchant family. Suning lays out his herb bundles, and Guiyi quickly weighs them and quotes a total of 3 taels of silver. That number shocks Suning because the herbs should only be worth about half as much, so he asks if Guiyi is quietly helping him out. Guiyi explains that heal all plant prices have doubled, and he holds up one dry-looking bundle that suddenly matters a lot more than before. That price jump sparks a dangerous memory. A month ago, the old Suning discovered a large patch of heal all plants deep near the inner Yinza mountains but never dared harvest it. Now that his knife skill has improved and the herb is suddenly worth serious money, Suning starts thinking he might risk going after that patch after all. Guiyi tells Suning that heal all plants have suddenly become expensive because a big buyer in Kanyan County is buying out local pharmacy stock. When Guiyi warns him to watch for heal all plants in the wild, Suning quietly locks onto one thought: that dangerous patch he already knows about. After taking his silver and leaving the shop, Suning rushes home, grabs his hatchet and gear, and heads straight for Yunza Mountains to try to solve his family's money problem in one gamble. More than half an hour later, Suning moves carefully through the steep Yunza range, knowing the mountains are full of beasts and rumors of demon beasts even if people still risk them to survive. He reaches the steep hillside and finds the untouched heal all patch exactly where he remembered, and to him the bleak field looks like a fortune waiting to be carried home. Because the patch sits right near the inner circle boundary, Suning does not rush in and first checks the area for danger. To be safe, he climbs a nearby tree, scans the surroundings, and only moves once he is sure nothing is stalking the slope. Satisfied for the moment, Suning ties the hatchet behind his waist and dashes into the patch to harvest as fast as he can. He bends low and pulls heal all plants one by one into his basket, working carefully but fast. As the basket fills, Suning realizes this patch is far bigger than he expected and starts calculating nearly 300 taels if he could carry it all. After about 15 minutes the basket is packed full at more than 20 pounds, and Suning forces himself to stop even though half the patch is still there. He presses the plants down and seals the basket, choosing mobility over greed in case something goes wrong on the way out. The moment he is ready to leave, heavy footsteps sound behind him and all his attention snaps toward the slope above. 5 or 6 huge black wolves appear above him and stare him down, and Suning instantly knows he is in serious trouble. Suning roars and steps forward first, startling the eager wolves just long enough to open a path to run. He spins and bolts downhill, but one glance back tells him the wolves are already chasing hard. The steep mountain path and the basket on his back make the truth obvious. He cannot outrun wolves on their own ground. With the pack nearly on him, Suning abandons the escape and scrambles up the nearest big tree. A wolf nearly catches his trousers on the way up, proving these inner mountain wolves are bigger and more dangerous than ordinary ones. Clinging to the tree, Suning weighs 2 bad choices: wait and hope the wolves leave, or drop down and fight while risking wounds that could kill him later in the mountains. He steadies himself by remembering his elementary gale knife technique, but he still knows a single injury out here could be fatal. Suning climbs a little higher and decides to wait first, while the wolves settle under the tree and refuse to give up. Hours drag by, and even while Suning eats flatbread to keep his strength up, the wolves stay planted under the tree like they have all day. After 2 hours, Suning realizes waiting is only making him weaker, so he hardens his gaze and chooses to strike first. Seeing the pack grow careless in the noon heat, Suning jumps from the tree and commits everything to one sudden ambush. Using the fierce sword wind move from his gale knife technique, he hacks into the largest wolf's back and nearly breaks it in one blow. Before the pack recovers from the shock, Suning cuts down the nearest wolf and suddenly turns 6 enemies into 4. With the strongest wolf crippled, Suning stops panicking and backs against the trunk so the remaining 4 cannot surround him. For one dangerous moment, man and wolves freeze in place, both waiting to see who breaks first. Then one wolf finally backs away, and the others follow, their fear of dying outweighing the hunt. When the pack disappears into the forest, Suning can finally breathe again and accept that he survived. He knows the abandoned wolf's claws and fur could sell too, but so close to the inner circle, the blood would only invite something worse. Choosing the herbs over extra risk, Suning wipes the blood from his hatchet and leaves the mountain fast. By sunset he reaches Tao village and goes straight to Guiyi's medicinal shop instead of heading home first. When Suning dumps the basket in front of him, Guiyi is stunned to see that he really brought back a massive haul of freshly picked heal all plants. Suning admits he took the risk at the inner outer border because of the price spike, and even Guiyi can only call him ruthless for going there. Guiyi weighs the basket and rounds the total to 25 pounds, which means Suning's gamble pays out at 150 taels. Guiyi goes to the back and returns with 2 silver notes, and Su Ning takes the 150 taels that equal about a year of family income. Before leaving, Su Ning checks whether the high price will last, and Guiyi eagerly agrees to buy more when Su Ning says there is still herbs left unpicked. With money in his pocket and his nerves finally easing, Su Ning decides to bring home something good and heads for the village butcher. He buys 2 pounds of lamb leg because he remembers Tao Tao likes tender lamb, even though the half-tail price still makes him pause. On the way home, Su Ning passes the village training yard and watches local teenagers drilling with spears and knives under an instructor. The sight reminds him that Tao village takes martial arts seriously, and that he had to quit training after 1 month because his family could not keep paying the 5-tael monthly cost. Even so, Su Ning no longer feels trapped by that setback, because with the martial arts panel he believes he can keep improving on his own as long as he has enough energy. Back at the house, he finds Tao Tao in the courtyard chasing an old hen with 2 sticks and yelling like a tiny swordswoman. Tao Tao immediately notices the meat, and Su Ning promises she will get a good meal tonight before heading into the kitchen. Half an hour later, Tao Yunchuan and Su Lian come home to a table full of lamb soup and thick slices of meat, and both are plainly shocked. When Su Lian worries that Su Ning wasted all his herb money on one expensive meal, he avoids the argument in front of Tao Tao and tells everyone to eat first. The family sits down to a rare hearty dinner, and Tao Tao happily eats until bits of food are stuck all over her face. After dinner, once Tao Tao has been sent away, Su Lian asks again why Su Ning suddenly spent so freely. Instead of answering with words, Su Ning lays 2 silver notes on the table and instantly changes the whole mood in the room. Su Lian picks up the notes with trembling disbelief, because 150 taels is far beyond what their household normally sees. Su Ning explains that he earned it by selling 25 pounds of heal-all plants after stumbling onto a patch in the mountains, while quietly hiding how dangerous that trip really was. Su Lian still thinks the story sounds too convenient, but when Su Ning tells her to verify it with Guiyi, she decides she really will ask him tomorrow. Back at home, Su Lian scolds Su Ning for throwing around money so recklessly even while staring at the life-changing 150 taels on the table. Tao Yunchuan tries to push the silver notes back to Su Ning, refusing to live off the younger man's earnings. Su Ning insists he has nothing to spend money on and wants the household to use it instead, but the couple still hesitates. Su Lian cuts off the back and forth, takes charge of the money, and keeps the 100-tael note for Su Ning's future while handing him the remaining 50 taels. Su Ning understands what his sister is doing and quietly heads back to his room. Once he is gone, Su Lian finally smiles with relief, comforted just knowing that money is there for his future. Tao Yunchuan uses the chance to bring up a bigger plan. Now that money is less desperate, Su Ning should finally train in martial arts. After thinking it through, Tao Yunchuan decides to save the 100 taels for Su Ning and spend 50 taels from their own savings to enroll him in the village training camp tomorrow. The next day, unaware of their plan, Su Ning returns to the Yunza Mountains to collect the last of the heal-all plants. He runs into a beast again, but this time the standoff ends quickly, and the animal backs off without a fight. Su Ning brings about 23 pounds of heal-all plants to Guiyi's shop, and Guiyi still pays him another full 150 taels. Instead of pocketing the money, Su Ning first asks whether his sister came by to investigate how he was earning so much silver. Guiyi admits Su Lian did come, worried something shady was going on, but he reassured her and kept quiet about the extra heal-all plants. Su Ning makes him promise to keep this second batch secret too, because he has already decided that this silver has another use. That hidden goal comes out fast when Su Ning asks whether Guiyi's uncle can get spirit medicine. Guiyi says spirit medicine is rare and expensive, usually shipped straight to the county city, with even the cheapest starting around 200 taels. Hearing that, Su Ning asks to see what the shop has in stock right now. Guiyi stares at him, stunned that Su Ning really plans to spend today's silver on spirit medicine, then heads to the back room. He returns with 3 wooden boxes and opens them one by one to reveal 3 spirit plants: star clover, spiky thorn, and swallowtail. The moment Su Ning touches the star clover, his hidden panel appears again and confirms it contains 3 units of energy. But when Guiyi names the price as 400 taels, Su Ning has to suppress his excitement and back off. He tests the spiky thorn next, and the panel shows 2 energy units while Guiyi quotes 230 taels. The spiky thorn is far more affordable, but Su Ning keeps comparing instead of committing too fast. Then he touches the swallowtail and sees the best surprise yet. It also holds 3 energy units. When Guiyi casually says this one costs only 190 taels, Su Ning is instantly sold. Su Ning realizes the value is all about the plant's use and rarity, not just raw energy, so he closes the box and chooses the swallowtail. Guiyi warns that the swallowtail is only useful for people with internal skills, but Su Ning refuses to explain and pays anyway. Using yesterday's 50 taels and today's 150, Su Ning hands over 200 taels, takes back 20 and change, and earns one last offer to refund it if he regrets the purchase. Grateful for the warning but not changing his mind, Su Ning leaves quickly with the spirit medicine in hand. Back home, Su Ning greets Tao Tao and shuts himself in his room before anyone can ask questions. Alone at last, he opens the box, grabs the swallowtail flower, and this time chooses to absorb the energy without hesitation. The panel updates to show 6 available energy, enough to push his Gale Knife technique to the next realm. Su-ning confirms the upgrade, and the technique surges through his mind and body in a familiar rush. In just seconds, his Gale Knife technique jumps from elementary to intermediate, a leap that should have taken ordinary fighters years. The boost leaves him exhilarated, confident he could now cut down those same 6 black wolves cleanly and without getting hurt. More than anything, the result proves his panel is terrifyingly powerful, and Su-ning becomes even more determined to find new sources of energy. That night over leftover lamb soup, Su-ning keeps quiet about his trip to the mountains and the spirit medicine he already spent. After dinner, Tao Yunchuan suddenly tells him that from tomorrow on, the odd-numbered days are no longer for herb gathering. Su-ning is baffled when Tao Yunchuan explains he has already paid the village so Su-ning can enter martial arts training. To Tao Yunchuan, martial training is the one real path upward, and he uses his own ruined leg as proof of what happens when a man lacks that chance. Su-ning tries to argue that his knife skills are already pretty good, but Tao Yunchuan laughs it off and assumes he is only trying to save money. Tao Yunchuan ends the discussion by patting his shoulder and ordering him to show up tomorrow no matter what. With no clean way to refuse, Su-ning decides to go for now and use the training camp as a cover story for his sudden progress. Before dawn the next morning, Su-ning gets up early and heads out for his first official day at the village training camp. On the way, he sees crowds of teenagers rushing toward the school field, and the scale of the camp hits him immediately. At the field, more than 200 youths are already divided into teams, each under a clan elder, and Su-ning has to ask around to find Tao Yunming's group. He greets the youths in his team and is relieved that even as an outsider, no one openly rejects him. The moment still reminds him that his old self never truly belonged here, but the current Su-ning is no longer so raw about it. Then a familiar voice breaks the mood when Guiyi calls out, equally surprised to see Su-ning at training. Guiyi admits he only shows up a few days a month because his uncle forces him to, and he would rather be back at the medicinal shop. Their small talk ends when someone shouts that Tao Yunming has arrived. Tao Yunming strides in carrying 2 heavy wooden boxes on his shoulders, and his sheer presence makes it obvious why he commands this team. He slams the boxes down and orders everyone to take a knife and line up. The trainees move fast, grabbing the village's shared steel knives because many families, including Su-ning's, do not own proper blades. After roll call confirms only 3 absences, Tao Yunming barks for practice to begin. Dozens of knives start moving at once as the team runs through the standard Gale knife routine under Tao Yunming's watchful pacing. Tao Yunming teaches like a storm, barking at weak swings, correcting bad form, and even kicking slack trainees to wake them up. He is just as quick to praise effort, and when he singles out Tao Ji for improving, she immediately swings with even more force. The scene also makes the village's rules clear. A few girls train too, but only families with means usually let daughters spend time on martial skills. Then Tao Yunming stops in front of Guiyi and tears into him for being lazy, soft, and still not having the basics despite all the time and money spent. A kick to the calf nearly sends Guiyi sprawling, and he can only swallow the humiliation and silence. After dismissing Guiyi as someone who will never become a real warrior, Tao Yunming finally turns his hard stare towards Su-ning. At the training field, Tao Yunming walks over to inspect Su-ning, expecting little because Su-ning trained alone and only joined after Tao Yunchuan paid the fee. Su-ning stays completely calm, because his Gale knife technique has already reached the intermediate realm, and he knows this test will not shake him. The longer Tao Yunming watches, the more shocked he gets, because Su-ning's blade work is smooth, precise, and clearly above the other trainees. Tao Yunming starts thinking Su-ning may have reached the elementary realm by himself, which feels unusually impressive for someone with no formal guidance. He openly praises Su-ning, and Su-ning only thanks him politely without showing off. After Tao Yunming leaves, Guiyi leans in with disbelief and envy, asking how Su-ning trained so well on his own. Su-ning gives him a flat answer: practice more and think more, while keeping the secret of the martial arts panel to himself. When the routine ends, Tao Yunming says most people improved but pointedly calls out the lazy ones, making Guiyi lower his head. After more solo practice and an hour and a half of training, Tao Yunming gathers everyone into a circle for individual combat tests. The first trainee steps in, and Tao Yunming uses real combat technique during the test so everyone can learn by watching. Watching from the crowd, Su-ning realizes Tao Yunming's external technique is also in the intermediate realm, but he feels his own understanding may already be sharper. Even so, Su-ning knows Tao Yunming would crush him if he used his fourfold internal skill, which reminds Su-ning that he still has no internal method. When Guiyi takes his turn, he charges in clumsily, and Tao Yunming knocks him out of the circle with one harsh counter. Tao Yunming coldly tells Guiyi to learn the basic routines first, and Guiyi can only get up in embarrassment. At last Tao Yunming calls Su-ning forward, and both of them enter the circle expecting this fight to reveal Su-ning's real level. The moment the fight starts, Su-ning moves like flowing water and sends a slash so fast and tricky that Tao Yunming barely dodges it on instinct. That near hit stuns Tao Yunming, because he instantly realizes Su-ning is not at the elementary realm at all. Tao Yuming suppresses his internal strength but finally brings out his own intermediate gale knife technique to answer Su Ning seriously. Su Ning attacks in relentless waves, and his rhythm, speed, and precision slowly force Tao Yunming backward into defense. The crowd starts whispering in disbelief, and Tao Ji is the first to judge correctly that Su Ning is already in the intermediate realm. Before his pride suffers further, Tao Yunming knocks Su Ning's blade aside, stops the bout, and publicly confirms that Su Ning has reached the intermediate gale knife technique. The trainees are shaken, and Guiyi suddenly feels Su Ning's bold herb gathering and spirit medicine purchase now make perfect sense. Su Ning stays outwardly calm, but inside he is thrilled, because the martial arts panel has made his intermediate realm even stronger than Tao Yunming's 10-year foundation. Tao Yunming jokes that Su Ning joined the camp only to test himself, then tells him to collect a reward and even get his training fee refunded. Su Ning learns the village rule. Anyone who reaches at least the elementary realm and passes the assessment leaves the camp and receives a steel knife plus an internal skill. The mention of an internal skill hits Su Ning hard, because this is exactly the path he thought was still closed to him. Su Ning quickly asks if an outsider can really receive such a reward, worried that village rules might still exclude him. Tao Yunming laughs and tells him not to overthink it, because Su Ning's family tie to Tao village makes him eligible like anyone else. Su Ning thanks him and quietly starts to feel that Tao village may be far more accepting than he once believed. In a good mood, Tao Yunming ends the morning session and tells Su Ning to go straight to the old clan church for his reward. Tao Yunming immediately drags Guiyi back to reality by ordering him to haul the heavy training knives to the armory and bring them back later. Guiyi tries to complain that the boxes are too heavy, but one threatening look from Tao Yunming shuts that down fast. After the others leave, Su Ning offers to help carry the knives, but Guiyi refuses and says he has finally decided to take the gale knife technique seriously. Guiyi even asks Su Ning to teach him later if he gets stuck, and Su Ning agrees before heading off. Su Ning follows the path from memory to the old clan church, the place where Tao village elders handle important clan affairs. The guards know exactly why he came and let him pass as soon as he says he cleared the training test. Inside the huge but simply decorated hall, Su Ning finds 3 other youths waiting for rewards, including the domineering Tao Yi and the young prodigy Tao Qingfeng. Su Ning knows who Tao Yi and Tao Qingfeng are, but they do not recognize him, so the 4 of them only exchange polite nods and wait quietly. Then a hearty laugh sounds from outside, and a high-spirited white-haired old man strides into the old clan church. An elderly clan elder, Tao Jinglu, arrives at the old clan church and immediately notes that 4 trainees have reached the elementary realm. Tao Yi greets him first with easy familiarity, showing she already knows the elders through her family. Tao Jinglu praises 13-year-old Tao Yi for reaching the elementary realm so early and says she is already closing in on her older sister Tao Jin. He turns to Tao Qifeng next and treats him as another promising young talent, which only makes the boy's confidence stand out more. Tao Qingping introduces himself too, but Tao Jinglu's reaction is much cooler, making the difference in status painfully obvious. When Tao Jinglu asks Su Ning's name and hears he is an outsider, his surprise is obvious because almost no outsiders in Tao village reach this level. Su Ning explains that his brother-in-law is Tao Yunxuan, but the name means little to Tao Jinglu, so the elder keeps judging him as just another ordinary trainee. After hearing that Su Ning is 17 and practices the gale knife technique, Tao Jinglu only gives him a flat not bad, clearly assuming his progress is nothing special. Su Ning realizes Tao Jinglu has underestimated him, but he stays quiet instead of showing off. With the introductions over, Tao Jinglu finally gets to the point and says he will teach them internal skills, instantly firing up all 4 trainees. He disappears into the back room and returns holding several booklets and papers, making the reward feel suddenly real. Each trainee receives a booklet titled Spring Breeze Tactic, and Su Ning opens his with real anticipation because this is his first internal skill. Su Ning flips through the pages and sees detailed text and body diagrams, enough to tell him this is a serious cultivation method, not some vague secret. Tao Yi is happy at first, but then she frowns and asks the obvious question: if the manual is handed out like this, what stops people from leaking it? Tao Jinglu calmly explains that internal skills are martial foundations, but not rare treasures, and in places like Kanyan County people can even buy them with silver. That only leads to Tao Ye's next question: if internal skills are so common, why does the village force beginners to master external skills first? Tao Jinglu says the village does this to keep novices from chasing strength blindly, because external skills give quicker early combat gains and internal skills are much harder to train. He adds the harsh filter behind the rule too: if someone cannot even reach the elementary realm in an external skill, their talent and perseverance are not enough for internal cultivation anyway. Tao Yi finally nods, and the whole group comes away with a much clearer picture of how internal and external skills differ. When Tao Jinglu asks for more questions, Tao Qingfeng steps up and asks what really separates one internal skill from another. Tao Jinglu explains that all internal skills aim at the same 9 mortal realms, but they stimulate the body in different ways. He says the Spring Breeze tactic is safer and steadier but slower, while the neighboring Song Village's Wind and Thunder book pushes harder and carries much more risk. To drive the point home, Tao Jinglu brings up a real warning: a Song village youth pushed too hard last year, survived, and still ended up crippled for life. His conclusion is blunt: the inherited methods are all tested, and once people break through, the strength difference comes more from the person than the manual. That answer clicks for Suning, who realizes internal skills are different in method, not in their core purpose. Tao Qifeng keeps digging and asks what decides the winner when two warriors are in the same realm. Tao Jinglu says the real gap comes from things like stage mastery, battle experience, upbringing, and how strong a fighter's external skills still are. Satisfied at last, Tao Qifeng thanks him, and the exchange shows just how patient Tao Jinglu has been with the younger generation. When Tao Jinglu checks on the last two, both Su Ning and Tao Qingping say they have no more questions because the earlier answers already covered what they needed. Tao Jinglu dismisses them to practice on their own and says elders will answer internal skill questions at the training grounds every 10th day of the month. He also hands over weapon vouchers, promising each of them a real knife or spear to match their training. The four answer in unison, clearly feeling that their martial path has just opened into a new stage. After a final bow, they leave the old clan church and head straight to the armory to claim their weapons. At the armory, Su Ning redeems his voucher for a steel knife, finally receiving a real weapon instead of a shared training blade. Once the rewards are collected, the four part ways and Su Ning heads off alone instead of going straight home. He stops at the accounting office first to collect the 5 taels Tao Yunmeng told him his brother-in-law was owed. The accountant pays him without much trouble, since a lie over 5 taels would be easy to expose and far more costly than the money itself. By the time Su Ning gets home, it is already after lunch, but Su Lian and Tao Yunchuan have saved a meal for him. When Su Ning says he does not need to return to training that afternoon, his sister and brother-in-law immediately panic and think he was dismissed by the instructors. Su Ning quickly explains that the opposite happened. The instructor said he already passed the training camp standard, so he no longer needs the regular sessions. Tao Yunchuan can hardly believe it, because just last month Su Ning was still frustrated over his knife progress. Ready for that doubt, Su Ning says he had actually advanced too fast on his own and mistook the confusion of a new realm for being stuck. Then he pulls out the Spring Breeze tactic booklet and sets the steel knife beside it, using the village's own rewards as proof that his explanation is true. That finally silences them, because even if the story sounds bizarre, the booklet and knife are impossible to argue with. Tao Yunchuan asks the question he barely dares to believe, and Su Ning gives him a firm yes. He really has become a martial artist. The news breaks Tao Yunchuan's restraint, and he bursts into delighted laughter that there is finally a warrior in their family. Su Lian is just as overjoyed, because Su Ning's success means their family can finally climb out of the hard life that kept pressing on all of them. Seeing their joy, Su Ning quietly resolves that he will keep changing this ordinary family's future for the better. After lunch, Su Ning heads back to his room while Su Lian and Tao Yunchuan put Tao Tao down for a nap and leave for work still smiling. Alone in his room at last, Su Ning places the Spring Breeze tactic on his desk and lets his excitement show, because this skill is the real key to deeper martial cultivation. He summons the martial arts panel, but it still shows only his intermediate Gale knife technique and 0 available energy. That makes Su Ning uneasy, because he does not know whether the panel can help with internal skills before he reaches the first mortal realm stage on his own. He quickly rejects the idea of waiting years and decides to test it directly by learning the manual first. Su Ning studies the Spring Breeze tactic for about an hour and finds it readable enough, especially with the diagrams explaining the harder parts. Even so, he can tell that relying on normal practice alone would make this internal skill much harder to advance than his external technique. When he checks the martial arts panel again, Spring Breeze tactic finally appears on it at novice level, and the result instantly relieves him. Now that he knows the panel accepts internal skills too, Su Ning leans in on the plus sign and prepares to see what it would cost to push Spring Breeze tactic toward the first mortal realm. Su Ning checks the martial arts panel and sees that pushing Spring Breeze tactic to the first mortal realm stage only costs 3 energy, which is cheaper than he feared. The problem is his energy is already empty, so Su Ning can only shut the panel with a frustrated no. Instead of dwelling on it, Su Ning realizes his new intermediate Gale knife skill lets him enter the inner area of Yinza Mountains, where the resources should be far better. He makes a simple plan, rest for 2 days, prepare properly, and head back into the mountains to build up energy again. While Tao Yunchuan and Su Lian are out working, Su Ning gets stuck babysitting little Tao Tao at home. Ever since Su Ning passed the martial arts test, Tao Tao has become even more obsessed with fighting and now insists on challenging him herself. Su Ning never meant to truly train her because she is too young, but Tao Tao refuses to listen and charges anyway. He casually stops her by planting a foot against her stomach and nudging her back onto the ground. Tao Tao scrambles up and attacks again, only to get knocked down the same way a second time. When she still tries to keep going, Su Ning pins her to the ground and demands to know if she admits defeat now. Tao Tao still refuses, so Su Ning switches to tickling her until the tough little boss finally breaks and surrenders. With the duel settled and noon approaching, Su Ning turns to cooking lunch for the family. He notices the firewood is low and starts chopping more before washing vegetables. Still fuming from her loss, Tao Tao redirects her warrior spirit at the old hen and tears off after it across the yard. Just as Su Ning is about to wash vegetables, Guiyi walks in at lunchtime carrying a knife and a paper-wrapped package. Suning jokes that Guiyi showed up for a free meal, but Guiyi says he actually came to practice martial arts. Guiyi sweetens the visit by opening the package and revealing meat sausages that his uncle brought back. That is enough to win Suning over, and he agrees to steam the sausages and teach Guiyi Gale knife technique after lunch. Tao Tao politely greets Guiyi as Uncle Yi, and he awkwardly accepts the title by bribing her with candy. When Suning asks why Guiyi does not learn from Tao Yungang instead, Guiyi complains that his uncle is too busy doing business to teach him. Suning knows Guiyi is more talented at bargaining than fighting, but since his friend is serious today, he tells him to show his knife form first. Guiyi performs the Gale knife routine with effort, but Suning can see right away that his basics are still shaky. Asked for his opinion, Suning bluntly says it is not good and takes over to demonstrate the proper form himself. He patiently points out the flaws one by one, and after a few repeats Guiyi really does start correcting them. Guiyi feels the difference immediately and happily admits he has improved, and this time Suning agrees. Exhausted, Guiyi drops onto a stone seat to rest, and Suning calls for Tao Tao to bring water. Tao Tao fetches water but naturally offers it to her own uncle first, leaving Guiyi to grumble that blood really does come first. When Guiyi asks if Suning will keep watching Tao Tao for the next few days, Suning says no because he plans to head back into the mountains in 2 days. That answer reminds Guiyi of something, and he suddenly asks if Suning wants to escort Tao Yungang's caravan to the county city instead. Guiyi explains that his uncle is about to haul 3 months of medicinal goods to Kanyun County and needs hired fighters to guard the trip. The job only takes people at intermediate external skill or second stage internal skill level, so Guiyi came straight to Suning because he qualifies. When Guiyi adds that the 5-day round trip pays 50 taels, even Suning is visibly surprised by the amount. Guiyi quickly warns that the money is high because horse bandits sometimes hit that route, though Tao Yungang's strength should keep the risk manageable. Suning thinks it through and decides to go, knowing that earning money as a martial artist means accepting real danger. Satisfied, Guiyi heads home to report it to his uncle and leaves just before Tao Yunchuan and Su Lian return for lunch. Early the next morning, after getting his family's approval, Suning goes to Tao Yungang's large house with his knife for the escort job. Inside the wide courtyard, he finds several donkey carts already loaded with medicinal goods and realizes the caravan is nearly ready to move. Guiyi comes out to greet him and confirms that he is joining too, though only to handle business rather than fight. Suning teases that Guiyi is practically disabled in martial arts, and Guiyi fires back that his real job is talking deals while Suning protects him. Tao Yungang then steps out, and the first thing he does is praise Suning for quietly reaching intermediate Gale knife ahead of everyone noticing. One by one, 5 more armed escorts arrive, all older than Suning and clearly used to road work. Before setting off, Tao Yungang surprises Suning by handing each escort their full 50 taels in advance. Guiyi explains that his uncle always pays first so the men can buy things in the county city, which tells Suning this is a familiar routine for the others. Tao Yungang assigns positions for the 4 carts, putting himself and Tao Yuquan in front and placing inexperienced Suning with Guiyi right behind them. Soon the caravan rolls out of Tao village and starts the long trip toward Kanyun County. Outside the village, the land turns sparse and lonely, a reminder that in this chaotic world most ordinary people only survive by staying together. After 2 hours under the harsh autumn sun, the group eats a rough lunch of flatbread and water on the road. Tao Yungang cuts the meal short with a warning that horse bandits often appear on the mountain road ahead. That warning tightens everyone up as they move into a narrow pass with steep slopes and trees on both sides. Tao Yungang tells them to watch the loose rocks too, because even falling rubble could turn the road into a trap. The rubble stays minor, and after a tense half-hour the caravan finally clears the dangerous section without being hit. Guiyi exhales in relief, but Suning quietly turns back to study the bleak mountains they just passed through. The calm only lasts a moment, because once the caravan is gone, more than a dozen horse bandits climb out onto the mountainside they just crossed. Their leader is a bald brute with a scarred face, the kind of man who looks dangerous before he even speaks. Beside him stands a broken-armed man with a crooked nose, staring after Tao Yungang's caravan with open hatred. When the bald leader asks if the man in front was Tao Yungang, the broken-armed bandit confirms it and bitterly identifies Guiyi too, making it clear this gang has a personal reason to care. Before the convoy ever reaches the city, Guaningo bitterly reminds John Sandow that Tao Yungang broke his arm and slaughtered his old men 3 months ago. John Sandow coolly promises that when Tao Yungang comes back from selling his goods, they will kill the whole group and settle the score. He also sees value in Guaningo himself, saying the new stockade finally has a backbone if Guaningo joins them under his lead. Before leaving, John Sandow orders a few men to stay hidden, watch the route, and report the moment Tao Yungang's convoy returns. Later, as the sun leans west, Tao Yungang's donkey caravan finally reaches the crowded gate of Kanyun County, and Suning gets his first look at a real county city. The crowd alone tells Suning how different this place is from Tao village, even before they pass inside the walls. A gate soldier barks that goods must pay an entry fee, so Tao Yungang quietly joins the line and handles it like routine business. Once they enter, the others praise the city's prosperity all over again, but Su Ning stays oddly unmoved because this level of bustle still does not match the modern world he remembers. Tao Yungang tells everyone to stop worrying for one night, find an inn, eat well, and unload the goods tomorrow. That easy mood snaps when pounding hooves approach, and Tao Yungang immediately orders the whole caravan to pull aside. A squad of black armored guards storms past in black armor, masks, and paired swords, and the whole street goes dead silent until they are gone. Watching them ride away, Tao Yungang calls them the black armored guards with open envy, because everyone in Kanyan County knows crossing them ends badly. Su Ning pieces together the name at once and remembers they are the Source Faction's elite force, one of the powers that now rules State Feiyan after the old dynasty fell. Guiyi blurts out that he wishes he could join them, and Tao Yungang instantly laughs him down for having hopeless martial talent. Soon Tao Yungang leads them to a familiar inn, where the staff clearly know him and quickly settle both the men and the carts. In a large private room, the convoy sits down to a feast with meat and liquor, and Guiyi tells Su Ning to relax and eat his fill. Su Ning does exactly that, because in this world a table this rich is not something his family gets to see often. When he hears the meal cost 40 taels, the number hits hard, and Su Ning quietly realizes how easily people with strength and connections can command wealth ordinary families never touch. After the drinking ends, a red-faced but clear-headed Tao Yungang tells Su Ning to go enjoy the county's nightlife with Guiyi while the rest sleep it off. The two younger men step back out into moonlit streets still full of people, and the county's nightlife feels almost unreal compared with sleepy Tao village. At the night market, Su Ning decides to buy small gifts for Su Lian and Tao Tao before heading home. He spots a stall selling carved wooden hairpins and asks the smiling old vendor for the price. The old man tries to charge 1 tael each, and Su Ning is just about to pay because he is terrible at bargaining. Guiyi immediately stops him, pushes the price down to 1 tael for 2, and wins so fast that Su Ning can only stare. With that saved silver, Su Ning picks 2 hairpins, one for his sister and one for Tao Tao. He also plans to bring Tao Yunchuan 2 jars of liquor, but after that he forces himself to stop spending before Su Lian can scold him back home. Guiyi, on the other hand, happily buys a pile of treats and little curiosities because he already knows most of it will end up in the hands of village children. After more than an hour outside, the two finally head back to the inn to rest, knowing the real work in the county is not over yet. The next 3 days pass in steady business as Su Ning follows Tao Yungang through deliveries and watches how much time real trade burns on keeping customers happy. At last, on the morning of the 5th day since they left home, everything is finished and the convoy starts back for Tao village. As the road empties out beyond the county, Guiyi jokes that this should be their last miserable donkey cart trip because next time Tao Yungang ought to switch to horse carriages. When Su Ning asks if this trip was that profitable, Guiyi quietly reveals the net gain was 2,000 taels, enough to leave Su Ning stunned. Guiyi quickly tempers that number by explaining the harvest changes with the season, and one bad robbery could wipe out a whole year and even cost lives. Su Ning accepts that Tao Yunggang's money comes with hard groundwork and real danger, not easy luck. 2 hours later, the convoy enters the tree-lined mountain road, and Tao Yungang immediately warns everyone to wake up and stay sharp. Su Ning grips his steel knife at once, because he knows this lonely stretch is exactly where trouble would come. The heat presses down, beast calls echo from the hills, and the whole road takes on a desolate, dangerous stillness. Tao Yungang even tries to keep morale up by saying they can eat once they clear the pass, but the break never comes. Instead, horses scream from the slopes and a band of armed riders charges down from both sides to surround all 4 carts. Su Ning recognizes it for what it is, a real horse bandit robbery, and his nerves spike because this time the enemies are desperate men, not beasts. Tao Yungang curses under his breath but stays composed, signaling his people to hold while he steps forward empty-handed to talk first. The bald leader answers his greeting by asking one thing first, "Are you Tao Yungang?" That one question tells Tao Yungang this is no random robbery, and he pointedly identifies himself as a man from Tao village in case the name still carries weight. Zhan San now ignores the warning completely and orders Tao Yunggang's men to put down their weapons and get off the carts. Instead of obeying, Tao Yungang asks for the man's name, buying a heartbeat to judge what kind of enemy he is facing. The bandit leader introduces himself with a sneer as Zhan San now. Tao Yungang immediately tries the usual road solution and offers 500 taels as a greeting gift to end this cleanly. Back in the cart, Guiyi whispers to Su Ning that this is already bad news, because Tao Yungang usually only needs 200 taels to send thieves away. Su Ning understands the warning at once. If even 500 is not enough, he may really have to draw blood today. Zhan San now smiles and says 500 is too low, making it clear he is not here for a simple toll. Tao Yungang raises the offer to a full 1,000 taels, still trying to buy a way out without a fight. For one brief second it looks like the number might work, and Tao Yungang starts to believe the convoy can still escape this alive. Then Zhan San now grins wider and says the money sounds good, but his friend still does not agree. That friend rides up with one ruined arm, and Tao Yunggang's pupils contract the instant he recognizes Guaningo. Guaningo coldly reminds him of their last clash, and says this time he wants not just the 1,000 taels he missed before, but Tao Yunggang's head as well. Now Tao Yungang has no doubts left at all. This ambush was planned from the start to kill him. He leaps back, yanks a machete from the donkey cart, and finally gives the order everyone was dreading: arm yourselves. The escorts draw steel and refuse to fold, while Jean Sandow's horse bandits tighten the circle for the kill. In the middle of that chaos, Tao Yungang steadies his people with a grim promise that if anyone dies or is crippled here, he and his wife will care for their families for life. He then singles Su Ning out as the weakest fighter and orders him to take Guiyi and run uphill the moment a path opens. Su Ning accepts the order without argument, because the danger is already too close for pride. Tao Yungang quickly lays out the rest. He will take Zhang Sandao, Tao Yunquan will handle Guaningo, and the others should run if they get any chance to survive. There is no more talking after that, because Zhang Sandao finally gives the kill order and the horse bandits surge in. Tao Yungang suddenly takes the initiative and cuts down an approaching bandit, showing the crushing power of a mortal round third stage fighter. The opening gives Su Ning and Guiyi a path out, and Tao Yungang shouts for them to run while he holds the enemy back. As Su Ning drags Guiyi into the wooded slope, Zhang Sandao notices and calmly sends a stocky subordinate on horseback after them. Deep in the forest, Su Ning hears hoofbeats closing in and realizes they cannot outrun a horse on foot. Su Ning spots a tall tree and tells Guiyi to climb, hoping to hide above the bandits' line of sight. The pursuing bandit loses sight of them, dismounts, and follows their footprints until they stop beneath the very tree where they are hiding. The moment the bandit looks up, Su Ning drops from the branches with a steel knife and strikes first from above. But the bandit dodges in time, and Su Ning immediately realizes this man is much faster and stronger than him, likely an internal skill fighter in the muscle-bone realm. The bandit counters with rough but brutally fast knife attacks, and Su Ning can only defend because one clean hit would finish him. When their blades clash, the heavy force numbs Su Ning's arms, and the bandit follows with a kick that knocks him to the ground. As the bandit raises his knife to end the fight, Guiyi drops from the tree and throws a handful of dirt into his face. The blind side works, and Su Ning surges up to drive his knife into the bandit, ending the pursuit. Shaken by how close he came to dying, Su Ning gives full credit to Guiyi, and Guiyi admits he grabbed the dirt beforehand just in case. They search the body and find little of value, but they do gain the bandit's spare knife and his horse. Su Ning hands the extra knife to Guiyi and tells him to ride the horse back to the village alone. Guiyi is stunned when Su Ning says he is going back to help Tao Yungang instead of fleeing with him. Su Ning explains that these attackers are not ordinary robbers after money, because they knew Tao Yungang by name and clearly came for revenge. He says Tao Yungang paid him well and helped him before, so he cannot turn away now, even if all he can do is look for a chance to change the situation. Seeing that Su Ning will not bend, Guiyi finally agrees, tells him to come back alive, and rides off toward the village. When Su Ning sneaks back toward the road, the battle has turned grim, with bodies on the ground and Tao village's side clearly losing. Guaningo and several bandits pin down Tao Yunquan and another villager, while the remaining men struggle just to stay standing. At the center of the road, Tao Yungang fights Zhang Sandao alone, but Zhang Sandao's experience makes every exchange harder to survive. Su Ning stays hidden behind a large roadside tree less than 50 meters away and studies the whole field, waiting for one opening instead of rushing in. Then Tao Yunquan suffers a devastating wound and cries out, and Tao Yungang's split-second distraction lets Zhang Sandao inflict a crippling injury on him too. Badly wounded and driven backward step by step, Tao Yungang is forced toward the very tree where Su Ning is hiding. Knowing he may die here, Tao Yungang drops all caution and launches one final desperate attack even as more wounds pile up on him. When Tao Yungang finally runs out of room and braces for the finishing blow, Su Ning bursts out from behind the tree with two knives in hand. Zhang Sandao senses danger too late, and Su Ning's surprise slash tears into his waist, shocking both the bandit chief and Tao Yungang. Even wounded, Zhang Sandao's inner enrichment body resists more than Su Ning expected, but the hit is enough to break his rhythm and expose him. Tao Yungang explodes back into the fight, and together he and Su Ning hammer Zhang Sandao before the bandit chief can recover. As Zhang Sandao stumbles and calls for help, Tao Yungang finishes him with one final decisive swing. The moment Zhang Sandao's head hits the ground, the nearest horse bandit freezes in horror and blurts out that their boss is dead. That single death breaks the whole bandit side, and the men who were still pressing Tao Yunquan suddenly lose their will to fight and start running. Guaningo realizes his revenge is over too, because with one arm gone and Zhang Sandao dead, he has no chance against Tao Yungang alone. He grits his teeth, jumps onto a horse, and tries to escape before Tao Yungang can reach him. Tao Yungang spots him instantly, grabs a horse, and charges after the man he blames for the whole disaster. With Guaningo unable to steer and defend himself at once, Tao Yungang catches him and cuts him off the horse. Guaningo falls screaming into the dirt, and Tao Yungang dismounts and finishes him without hesitation. Once the last threat breaks, Tao Yungang rushes back to Tao Yunquan instead of celebrating the win. Tao Yunquan is in terrible shape, with one hand severed, wounds all over his body, and so much blood lost that he can barely stay conscious. Su Ning runs to the cart for hemostatic medicine, moving fast now that the fighting is finally over. After the bleeding is checked, the survivors count the cost and confirm that 3 of their companions are dead. That answer finally crushes Tao Yungang, and the seasoned caravan leader drops to his knees in front of the dead, drowning in guilt. Watching the wreckage, Suning feels the horror of this martial world hit him for real, because men who were laughing together days ago are now lying dead on the road. He steps over and grips Tao Yunggang's shoulders, wanting to help even though he cannot find the right words. Tao Yunquan drags his wounded body over and tells Tao Yungang not to drown in blame, because everyone accepted this escort job knowing the risk and trusting his fairness. Those words steady Tao Yungang a little, but the shame of losing 3 men under his watch still hangs on him. Then Tao Yungang turns to Su Ning and openly thanks him, because Su Ning's desperate ambush from behind is what created the chance to kill Zhan San now at all. Tao Yunquan and the other survivor are stunned, because they know Su Ning only has intermediate gale knife technique and no internal skill, yet he still charged a stronger enemy. Su Ning answers modestly that this was the work Tao Yungang paid him for, and also his way of repaying the help Tao Yungang and Gui Yi once gave him. That answer hits Tao Yungang hard, and when he learns Gui Yi already escaped safely on horseback, he finally lets out a little relief. With the grief still fresh, Tao Yungang forces himself back into command and tells the survivors to clean the field and take their dead brothers home. Because only 4 men are left to manage the convoy, they rework the 4 donkey carts into 2 heavier carts and take the bandits' 2 horses with them. They set out again, wounded, exhausted, and carrying both medicine and bodies back toward Tao village. More than 2 hours later, voices shout from ahead, and the returning convoy sees Gui Yi coming back with a rescue party. Leading the rescue is Tao Yunming, who gathered men after Gui Yi rushed home with the news, even though nobody knew if they would arrive in time. Gui Yi is overwhelmed just to see Tao Yungang and Su Ning still alive, but the mood drops at once when everyone notices the bodies on the carts. Without any more words, the rescuers fall in behind the carts and escort the dead and wounded the rest of the way home. Back in the village, Tao Yungang stops Su Ning only long enough to promise he will thank him properly later, because right now his first duty is to bury his fallen men. Gui Yi says almost nothing, but the look he shares with Su Ning carries the weight of everything that happened on that road. Walking home alone, Su Ning settles on a hard truth: without real strength and power, he cannot protect himself or the people around him. He decides that after a short rest, he will push deeper into the inner Yinza mountains to search for resources and advance faster. The moment he pushes open the courtyard door and calls out that he is back, the cold weight of the day finally eases a little. Su Lian is drying clothes in the courtyard, and when she sees her exhausted little brother come home safely with a wine jar and a knife on his back, she relaxes at once. Su Ning hands over the wine he bought for Tao Yunchuan, and Su Lian scolds him for spending money, though her tone is gentler now that the family is doing better. He asks to wash up first, still sticky with sweat and grime from the road, and Su Lian naturally tells him to leave the dirty clothes for her to wash. But before he can go, Su Lian notices the dried blood on his knife and clothes, and her relief snaps into alarm. Su Ning downplays it as a fight with a small group of thieves, trying to hide how close the danger really was. Su Lian immediately checks him for injuries, and only calms down after Su Ning proves he can still move normally. After washing and changing into clean clothes, Su Ning finally feels both his body and his nerves settle down. That calm breaks in a sweeter way when Tao Tao bursts in from outside and throws herself around his waist the second she sees him home. Su Ning teases her for being filthy from play, pulling her away by the pigtails before she can dirty his fresh clothes again. Then he calls her to the table and reveals a green wooden hairpin he brought back just for her. Tao Tao receives it like treasure, and after staring at it in pure delight, she bolts outside to show her mother at once. Su Ning smiles at the sight, knowing the wooden hairpin means so much in this once-per home that Tao Tao has always treated them like rare treasures. He also gives Su Lian a hairpin, and though she reacts more calmly than Tao Tao, the pleased smile on her face says enough. At dinner, the 3 wait for Tao Yunchuan, while Tao Tao still refuses to let go of the hairpin for even a moment. When Tao Yunchuan finally comes in, he is breathless and sweating because he has already heard that Tao Yunggang's convoy was hit by horse bandits, and feared Su Ning was among the dead. The news shocks Su Lian too, because she had no idea the attack was that serious, and now learns 3 men died. With the truth already out, Su Ning has no choice but to tell his sister and brother-in-law what really happened on the road. After hearing how close he came to death, Su Lian flatly forbids Su Ning from escorting carts ever again, and Tao Yunchuan silently backs her up. Su Ning gives in at once, because he already knows he can make money another way and does not want to keep them in fear. Only after that promise does the family finally settle down and begin dinner together. Su Ning plans to rest for 2 days, but by the next morning he is already back to hauling water and cutting firewood like normal village work never stopped. As he walks through Tao village, he notices the atmosphere has changed, because strangers and acquaintances alike now greet him with open respect. By now the whole village has heard that Su Ning threw himself into the fight and helped bring down the bandit leader, so his name is suddenly known everywhere. Before he reaches home, Tao Yi steps out with her spear and stops him, clearly impressed by what she has heard. She praises him for daring to face an inner enrichment opponent with only intermediate gale knife technique, and her tone makes it clear Su Ning's standing just rose again. Su Ning immediately softens the story, insisting he only created a distraction and that Tao Yungang was the one who truly killed the enemy. Tao Yi tells Su Ning that even clan head Tao Jingxing praised his courage, and the compliment hits him hard. After they part, Suning walks home realizing his standing in Tao village has quietly changed for the better. When Suning gets home, he finds the courtyard suddenly piled with grain, meat, clothes, and other goods. Guiyi arrives carrying a wooden box and explains that Tao Yugang sent all of it over. Guiyi says Tao Yugang wanted to thank Suning in person, but funeral duties and the wounded have kept him too busy. Suning opens the box and freezes when he sees 5 swallowtail flowers lined up inside. He immediately tries to refuse, because the flowers are worth around 1,000 taels and far too generous to accept lightly. Guiyi presses the box back and says Tao Yugang sees this as a debt for saving both their lives, especially now that Suning needs spirit medicine for internal training. Knowing he truly needs an energy source, Suning finally accepts the gift after Guiyi hurries off to help his uncle. Once the supplies are moved inside, Suning stares at the 5 flowers on his table and starts weighing where 15 energy units should go. He decides not to hesitate and absorbs the first flower, watching it wither as the martial panel answers his choice. He absorbs the other 4 flowers in one go and ends up holding a rare surplus of 15 energy units. Suning chooses internal skill first and spends 3 energy to push Spring Breeze tactic into the first mortal stage, the practice realm. The breakthrough rushes through his body like surging blood and hidden strength, leaving him dizzy but thrilled. When he lifts his steel knife again, the weapon suddenly feels much lighter than before. He breaks into a knife routine inside the house and quickly realizes his stronger body has made Gale knife far more dangerous. Seeing how much internal skill strengthens everything else, Suning turns back to the panel and studies his next choice. He hesitates because his remaining 12 energy could either push internal skill one more realm, or take Gale knife all the way to perfection. After weighing raw technique against a stronger body, Suning decides his internal foundation has to come first. He spends 6 more energy and breaks into Spring Breeze Tactic's second mortal stage, the Muscle Bone realm. This time the change settles into his fascia and bones, making him looser, quicker, and more explosively controlled. He immediately understands the payoff: better angles, better precision, and a body sturdy enough to handle ordinary men barehanded. The next internal realm would cost 12 energy by itself, so Suning closes the panel with only 6 left and quietly recognizes how much Tao Yungang's gift changed his future. With fresh confidence in his stronger body, Suning decides to head back into Yunza Mountains the very next day. Half a month passes, and Suning starts entering Yunza Mountains almost every other day, gradually pushing deeper after learning the terrain. The richer inner areas pay off fast, turning his old trickle of income into a strong stream of silver from rare herbs and mountain resources. Back in the village, he keeps selling his finds to Guiye's shop, and 6 taels in a day now feels normal instead of shocking. During the same stretch, Tao Yungang settles the ambush aftermath properly, paying the dead men's families well and supporting Tao Yunchuan's recovery after losing a hand. Suning's earnings reshape his own home too, and he convinces Su Lian and Tao Yunchuan to stop grinding themselves down for winter work. Soon the whole household feels lighter, with meat on the table more often and renovation work making the place look like a new life has started. At dinner, Suning asks if there is lamb at home because he plans to visit Tao Yunming's house with gifts. The reason is simple. Deeper mountain hunting has shown him he needs a long-range skill, so he wants to learn archery before a beast gets close enough to maul him. After asking around through Guiyi and Tao Yungang, Suning learns that Tao Yunggang's former coach Tao Yunmeng is the person he should seek out. Tao Yunchuan immediately agrees to prepare 2 pounds of lamb, and Su Lian reminds Suning to bring extra gifts since he is going to ask for martial instruction. That night, Suning heads out carrying the lamb and gifts to Tao Yunming's home. Tao Yunming's residence is large and brightly lit at the gate, making it obvious he is a high-level martial man with real standing in the village. Suning knocks and announces himself as a visitor for Uncle Ming. The door opens to a young man who looks a lot like Tao Yunming, and after a quick glance he lets Suning inside. Suning is led into Tao Yunming's study, where the older man greets him warmly instead of making him stand on ceremony. Tao Yunming asks what Suning has been doing lately, and Suning answers honestly that he has been training his internal skill and gathering herbs in the mountains. Tao Yunming assumes Suning's internal training must still be slow and gives him serious advice to treat internal skill as the true foundation. Suning keeps his real progress hidden and simply accepts the advice, saving the surprise of his muscle bone realm strength for later. When Tao Yunming offers to help him find better paying work, Suning admits his real problem is dealing with dangerous beasts in the mountains. Suning finally states his request. He wants to learn an archery external skill so he can survive better in Yunza Mountains. Tao Yunming immediately pushes back, warning that a second external skill can distract a talented fighter from the internal path that actually matters. He goes further and says people usually pick up a second external skill only when their internal progress has already stalled, so Suning would be wasting his talent. Suning does not argue emotionally. He explains that archery is a practical survival tool, and surviving the mountains is exactly how he earns the resources to keep training his internal skill. He adds one more crucial point: learning basic archery will not slow his internal training, which gives Tao Yunming a reason to reconsider. After a short silence, Tao Yunming accepts Suning's reasoning and agrees to teach him archery after all. Suning rises at once to thank him, and Tao Yunming immediately adds a condition: Learn only enough to defend yourself, not so much that it derails your main path. Tao Yunmeng leaves the study for a while, making Su Ning wait as the favor becomes real. When Tao Yunmeng returns, he brings an old manual and explains that he once bought it from a down-and-out warrior back when he served on the village hunting team. He places the manual in Su Ning's hands and says he himself only practiced it to the elementary realm, but it was enough for mountain defense. Su Ning looks down and sees the title Light Feather Bow technique, finally getting exactly what he came for. Su Ning thanks him again, and the tense request turns into a calmer talk between elder and junior. Their small talk continues, with Tao Yunmeng offering practical life lessons that Su Ning listens to seriously even if they are not all immediately useful. In the end, Su Ning takes his leave, once again owing a debt of help to one of Tao Village's seniors. The story jumps to the inner circle of Yinza Mountains, where danger is constant and no humans are in sight. A young man with a waist knife and a bow runs through the jungle, while a leopard as large as a tiger tears after him at full speed. But this time Su Ning is not panicking. After reaching the muscle-bone realm, his body can keep up, and the beast still cannot close the distance. As the pursuit drags on, Su Ning notices the leopard's endurance failing and realizes the hunt is about to reverse. He immediately changes from prey to attacker, cutting toward the side of a hill and taking the higher ground. From the high ground, Su Ning suddenly stops and turns to face the leopard head-on. The leopard freezes for a beat, snarling at the prey that suddenly stopped running. Su Ning draws his bow and puts the newly learned light feather bow technique into action. He has already pushed the technique to the elementary realm, so the first arrow flies fast and true. The mountain hunt turns into a ranged kill, with Su Ning wearing the beast down from a safe distance before finishing it with his other weapon as needed. Back in Tao Village, unusual official movement draws attention when the black armored guards make a rare appearance. Soon after, Tao Village's senior elders gather in the old clan church to hear what this visit means. Tao Jingxing drops the news directly. Captain Xia Yuanxing says the black armored guards want to recruit people from Tao Village. The elders are stunned because the black armored guards have spent decades keeping locals at arm's length instead of recruiting them. A bald elder voices the obvious question: why would the guards suddenly break their long-standing rule now? That question carries real weight, because everyone knows the guards deliberately stayed separate from local powers to preserve their own control. Tao Jingxing says he was shocked too, and relays Xia Yuanxing's answer: the situation is unstable, so they now need local talent. Then Tao Jingfang asks the question that matters most: exactly who are they taking, and how many? Tao Jingxing answers that they want 20 of Tao Village's best young men between 14 and 18, which sounds a lot less like cooperation and a lot more like stripping away the clan's future. Tao Jingfang says it bluntly: this is poaching the young backbone of Tao Village. Tao Jinglu voices the room's anger next, arguing that those youths are exactly what Tao Village needs to survive into the future. The elders' objections pile up until Tao Jingxing slams the room back into silence with a single command. Once he has control again, Tao Jingxing admits he was angry too, but says Xia Yuanxing offered terms that change the picture. According to those terms, selected youths would stay in Kanyun County instead of being sent away forever. He adds the bigger promise after that: once they reach 40, each recruit can choose whether to remain with the guards or return home to Tao Village. That promise does not erase the risk, but it softens the blow enough that the elders can suddenly imagine this deal benefiting Tao Village instead of only draining it. At the clan meeting, Tao Jingfang warns that once they accept this deal, Tao Village will no longer stay truly independent from the black armored guards. Tao Jinglu backs that fear up, and the room sinks into uneasy silence because everyone knows the danger is real. Tao Jingxing cuts through the debate and reminds them that against the black armored guards, Tao Village has no real room to negotiate at all. He explains that the black armored guards have finished stabilizing Kanyun County and are now ready to sink their influence into local families like Tao Village. Then Tao Jingxing says the hard truth outright: this is not a matter for discussion, only a matter of submission, because the black armored guards are backed by the Source faction. The elders hate hearing it, because their village status means nothing in front of a force that powerful. Tao Jingxing eases the blow by pointing out that if the guards can enter Tao Village, then Tao Village's youths can also gain the guards' resources and future influence. He reframes the whole issue around the younger generation, saying that for their descendants, joining the black armored guards brings more benefits than drawbacks. Tao Jingxing spells out the lure clearly: the black armored guards can offer better cultivation supplies and better teachers than Tao Village ever could. Then he drops the real bombshell: the best recruits in Kanyun County may even be sent onward to the Source faction itself. That one sentence flips the room, and even the elders who were most worried suddenly light up at the thought of a Tao descendant reaching such a legendary place. Tao Jingxing confirms Xia Yuanxing said it personally, and the elders' resistance finally gives way to open enthusiasm. But he quickly cools them down again by explaining the competition. Only 20 recruits will come from Tao Village, with the rest split among Song Village, Tan Village, and other places. The irony lands immediately, because the same elders who opposed the plan a moment ago now regret that Tao Village did not get even more slots. Tao Jingxing ends the meeting by ordering every family to push their descendants hard, because the selection will arrive in just 1 month. The next day, while Su Ning and Su Lian clean the yard at home, Gui Yi bursts in with the news before he even catches his breath. Gui blurts out that the black armored guards have posted a recruitment notice in Tao village, and Su Lian is instantly stunned. Gui knows he has no chance himself, so he throws all his excitement onto Su Ning and urges him not to miss this opening. Su Lian joins in too, making it clear she wants her younger brother to take this chance seriously. Amused by how worked up they are, Su Ning decides the best answer is to go read the notice himself. At the notice board, the whole village has already packed the area, and the buzz of ambition is louder than the winter morning. The villagers around it care less about politics than the clan elders did, because all they see here is a rare chance to rise. Su Ning squeezes through the crowd, catches the contents of the notice, and comes away genuinely interested. The notice says the selection is for Tao village youths from 14 to 18, and it does not exclude people with outside surnames, which means Su Ning can enter openly. It also says Xia Yuanxing will personally oversee the test in 1 month, but the exact criteria are still being kept quiet. What hooks Su Ning most is the promise of steady resources and the right to leave the black armored guards later, even if that freedom only comes at 40. After doing the numbers in his head, Su Ning figures that with roughly 20 spots for about 200 youths, his current strength should give him a very real shot. Seeing Su Ning is serious, Gui immediately offers to help gather resources for him, practically acting more nervous than the man taking the test. Su Ning waves that off and answers lightly that if he gets in, good, and if not, that is just fate. Before Gui can argue back, the crowd suddenly quiets and parts for one person. Tao Qingyuan walks in with a sword at his side, and even without saying anything, he instantly becomes the center of the scene. He thanks the person who stepped aside, reads the notice with calm focus, and leaves under everyone's eyes as politely as he arrived. The moment he is gone, people start talking again, and Gui can't hide his jealous awe at how Tao Qingyuan draws attention everywhere. Su Ning remembers that Tao Qingyuan is the same age as him and the acknowledged top talent of Tao village, stronger even than Tao Jin. In the village's eyes, Tao Qingyuan is already destined for the black armored guards and maybe even future leadership of Tao village itself. Su Ning does not linger in that chatter, because with a month still left, he feels his current strength is enough to stay confident. Gui sends him off with one more earnest warning to train hard, already acting like Su Ning's success matters to him personally. A month flashes by, winter deepens, and the first heavy snow leaves Kongyun County buried in white. Unlike the others nervously preparing, Su Ning keeps his usual rhythm of entering the mountains for herbs and occasional hunting. During that month, he finds one spirit medicine worth 2 energy and absorbs it on the spot. His earnings also stay strong enough for him to buy another swallowtail flower, letting him absorb 3 more energy from that box as well. By the time selection day arrives, Su Ning is sitting on 7 stored energy, and that hidden reserve makes him even calmer. Before sunrise on selection day, the entire village is already buzzing, because everyone knows the black armored guards are finally coming. At Su Ning's home, Su Lian has been up since rooster crow, laying out a heavy breakfast so he will not lose strength at the crucial moment. Su Ning sits down smiling at the oversized meal, but Su Lian shuts down any complaint and orders him to eat everything. She also tells him Tao Yunchuan has already gone ahead to the school field to scout the situation, which leaves Su Ning a little speechless at how invested everyone is. The family chaos wakes little Tao Tao early, and she stumbles in with messy braids and an unbuttoned cotton jacket, still half asleep. The second she spots the meat, Tao Tao perks up and reaches for it, only for Su Lian to smack her hand away and drag her in for fixing. Su Lian scolds her gently while redoing her buttons and braids, still keeping all her attention on getting Su Ning ready for this big day. She even prepares water and pork slices for Su Ning to carry, treating the selection like the kind of life-changing exam no one can afford to mishandle. While Su Lian is distracted, Su Ning secretly coaxes Tao Tao onto his lap and sips her a piece of meat like an accomplice. Tao Tao asks in her small, serious voice whether her uncle can really join the black armored guards, showing how much the whole household has been talking about it. Su Ning answers that there should not be a problem, and Tao Tao rewards him with a mouthful good luck that lands surprisingly sweet. After breakfast, Su Ning heads out with the things Su Lian packed, while she stays behind because watching in person would only make her too nervous. The roads to the school field are already full of villagers, because even people with no stake in the test want to witness the black armored guards' first recruitment here. As soon as Su Ning reaches the school field, Tao Yunchuan calls him over and takes charge like an anxious advanced scout. Tao Yunchuan grabs Su Ning's supplies and starts explaining the field layout, determined to make sure he walks in knowing the ground. With heavy stones, weapon racks, and training shelves laid out across the field, Su Ning gets a rough sense of the kind of assessment waiting for him. People keep pouring in until the school field is packed, turning the whole selection into a village-wide spectacle. At the same time outside the village, Tao Jingxing and the clan elders stand in the winter wind waiting personally to receive Captain Xia Yuanqing. The sound of galloping horses finally breaks the stillness, and everyone knows the black armored guards have arrived. A black-clad team rides into view behind an imposing leader whose armored warhorse and broadsword make him feel dangerous even before he dismounts. Tao Jingxing greets him loudly and respectfully, meeting force with full village ceremony. Xia Yuanqing jumps down from his horse with enough weight to shake the ground, making his strength impossible to ignore. Tao Jingxing offers rest and breakfast, but Xia Yuanxing removes his mask and refuses the ceremony because the selection itself comes first. Tao Jingxing immediately yields and gestures toward the village, leading Captain Xia and the black armored guards inside for the talent test. At the noisy school field, one shout that the black armored guards had arrived made the whole crowd fall silent at once. Tao Jinglu climbed the platform and ordered everyone except the age-eligible candidates to clear out immediately. As the spectators streamed out, Tao Yunchuan patted Su Ning on the shoulder, told him not to force himself, and promised to wait outside. Once the field emptied down to about 200 youths, the space looked bare inside even though the village still packed the sidelines outside to watch. Clan head Tao Jingxing rallied the younger generation, telling them to take the black armored guard selection seriously for themselves, their families, and Tao village. He warned that anyone who broke the assessment rules would be thrown out, and the candidates answered with a loud, eager understood. The guards split up according to plan and told everyone to line up at 5 tables, starting the first formal step of the test. The line turned messy as everyone tried to peek ahead, until a guard's cold order to stay in line shut the noise down. When Su Ning reached the registration table, the examiner first paused at his outsider name before Su Ning explained he belonged with Tao village through Tao Yunchuan's family. A second examiner checked Su Ning's age by feeling his shoulder and arm, and confirmed he really was 17. Asked to report his martial training truthfully, Su Ning revealed intermediate gale knife technique and spring breeze tactic at the muscle bone realm. That answer instantly made Su Ning stand out, with the examiners impressed and the youth behind him already looking defeated. With his information sheet in hand and the strength, technique, and aptitude columns still blank, Su Ning headed to the next station wondering how aptitude would even be tested. At the strength station, Su Ning found rows of lifting stones and quickly guessed the first assessment would be a simple test of raw power. When his turn came, the examiner told him to lift a stone one-handed and hold it for 10 breaths. Su Ning raised a roughly 150-pound stone with one hand so easily that the test barely looked like a struggle. After he set the stone down, the examiner marked his strength column as a pass and sent him on. At the technique station, Su Ning ran into Tao Qingping, who had also made it through the strength test. Watching the station, Su Ning saw that the candidates had to attack a black armored guard, who defended without striking back to judge their weapon skill. Tao Qingping stepped up first, and Su Ning could tell his gale knife technique had grown much firmer, almost at the intermediate realm. Before Tao Qingping had even finished, another examiner called Su Ning forward for his own technique test. The examiner told Su Ning not to use internal power because this round was only for external skill, and Su Ning charged in without hesitation. After only 3 slashes, the examiner had seen enough to tell Su Ning he was very good and marked the technique column as passed. With 2 rounds cleared surprisingly fast, Su Ning was sent to the waiting area and kept wondering what kind of final test could measure aptitude. The waiting area was a temporary shed with tables, chairs, water, and food, and more than 10 early passers were already there. Among them, Su Ning spotted Tao Jin, the famously strong granddaughter of Tao Jingxing and one of Tao village's top young talents. Su Ning exchanged a few brief greetings, nodded politely to Tao Jin, and chose to sit quietly instead of relaxing too early. Tao Qingping arrived soon after, surprised that Su Ning had finished before him until he remembered Su Ning's stronger knife realm. Su Ning answered with a modest compliment, but Tao Qingping was already curious enough to glance at his information sheet. The moment Tao Qingping saw muscle bone realm written on the sheet, he was stunned that Su Ning had reached it in less than 2 months. Su Ning brushed it off as luck, but that only made Tao Qingping feel the gap more sharply after all the money and effort his own family had spent on him. In Tao Qingping's eyes, Su Ning had already caught up to Tao village's 2 top geniuses, Tao Qingyuan and Tao Jin. Tao Jin overheard everything, and her calm face shifted when she realized the man she knew as brave might also be a genius on Tao Qingyuan's level. That realization unsettled her, because another dangerous rival had surfaced right before the final cut. Tao Jin quickly tried to steady herself by remembering her own edge. At 18, her external skill was intermediate, and her internal skill had already reached mortal realm 3rd stage. She pushed herself even harder with the thought that once she broke into the 4th stage, she could leave both Su Ning and even Tao Qingyuan behind. Su Ning noticed Tao Jin's strange tension and guessed she had heard his conversation, but he could not fully understand why it bothered her so much. He let the thought go and kept waiting, while the number of successful candidates slowly climbed to nearly 40 after another half hour. With only 20 spots to fill, Su Ning quietly calculated that nearly half of the remaining group would still be cut in the last round. A black armored guard finally came to collect them, congratulated the survivors of the first 2 rounds, and led the group toward the last qualification test. The finalists were brought to the center of the school field, where a wooden shelf had been set up and Xia Yuanxing sat watching beside the Tao village elders. Tao Qingyuan casually told Tao Jin she looked nervous, and she covered it by saying she was only curious about the format of the test. Back in his own row, Tao Qingping admitted he was nervous, because he had barely scraped through the first 2 rounds. Su Ning told him to relax, even though he knew his own natural talent might also be a weakness in an aptitude test. Even so, Su Ning stayed calmer than most, because with the martial arts panel behind him, Failure here would only slow him down instead of ending his path. On the guard's order, all 40 candidates sat cross-legged in front of the shelf, with elders and black armored guards forming a ring around them. Then several guards carried in a huge round object hidden under cloth, and even they looked strained by its weight when they set it onto the shelf. When Tao Jingxing asked what the mysterious device was, Xia Yuanxing only smiled and said the clan head would see soon enough. At Xia Yuanxing's command, the final aptitude assessment finally began. A deputy guard took out a metal can and a feather, then went to the first candidate and told him to raise his head and open his eyes. He dipped the feather into the can and lightly pressed it to the candidate's forehead, leaving Su Ning, Tao Qingyuan, and Tao Jin equally baffled about what the test was measuring. When Su Ning's turn comes, the black-armored deputy brushes a strange liquid over his eyes, leaving only a brief cool sting behind. After every candidate gets the same treatment, the deputy points them to a covered round stone and lays down the final rule: stare, keep sitting, and do not close your eyes. The deputy pulls away the cloth and reveals a cracked round stone tablet marked with curling black lines. Su Ning stares hard at the odd pattern, but at first it looks like nothing more than dead black lines on stone. The Tao elders try to make sense of the test from the sidelines, but they only see a static stone and have no idea what the guards are really doing. When Tao Jingxing asks Captain Xia what this thing is, Xia Yuanxing only tells him to keep watching. A dozen breaths later, the lines finally begin to move for Su Ning, and the whole venue seems to vanish into darkness around that rotating pattern. The spinning lines sees Su Ning's breathing in a harsh broken rhythm, as if an invisible hand keeps smothering him and letting him gasp again. Su Ning bitterly assumes this is just proof that his martial talent is poor, and that effort alone cannot force a body to learn what it cannot sense. Just as he is about to give up, the martial arts panel suddenly flashes into view with a new prompt asking whether to spend one energy on the source breath bodybuilding tactic. Su Ning quickly checks the panel and realizes a brand new external skill has appeared on his list with 7 energy still available. That is when it clicks for him. This brutal breathing pattern is not random torture at all, but the actual teaching method for a body tempering technique, and the real test is whether a recruit can learn it. Relieved, Su Ning chooses yes and instantly learns the source breath bodybuilding tactic at beginner level, dropping his stored energy to 6. The forced breathing stops feeling painful at once, and Su Ning suddenly moves with the rhythm naturally, his body filling with obvious new strength. Feeling his body grow stronger, Su Ning finally gets a direct taste of how deep the Black Armored Guard's source faction methods really run. Back outside Su Ning's inner struggle, Xia Yuanxing catches the change and is plainly baffled that a boy who looked ready to fail has suddenly steadied himself. The Tao elders also notice Su Ning settle down again, and their earlier worry gives way to visible relief. Tao Jingxing realizes the younger generation must be seeing something the elders cannot, and the strange method only deepens his awe of the Black Armored Guards. As the assessment drags on, the first candidate finally breaks, stands up helplessly, and the silent test starts claiming one person after another. Most of the remaining recruits are soon grimacing and gasping, but Su Ning, Tao Qingyuan, and Tao Jin still look almost untouched. Seeing Su Ning hold on this long, Tao Jinglu starts treating him as future backbone material for the village and quietly decides he should be tied to Tao village for good. By the late stage, even top talents like Tao Qingyuan and Tao Jin begin to frown under the pressure, while Su Ning sits there calm and effortless. That impossible calm makes Xia Yuanxing smile at last, because whatever Su Ning's real talent is, he has become too interesting to ignore. Then the deputy examiner calls the end of the test, and only 20 candidates are still sitting where they started. The winners almost beam with relief, the losers look crushed, and Su Ning simply rubs his eyes because he already knew he was safe the moment he learned the technique. Tao Jin checks that Tao Qingyuan made it, then instinctively looks for Su Ning too and goes blank when she finds him still there. The deputy's tone finally softens as he congratulates the survivors and tells the new recruits to line up with their forms before Captain Xia. Su Ning joins the line in silence and notices that even the sweating, rattled Tao Qingping barely held on and passed. At the front, Tao Qingyuan greets Xia Yuanxing, and the captain openly names him the pride of Tao village before accepting him into the Black Armored Guards. Xia Yuanxing hands Tao Qingyuan a yellow metal Black Armored Guard plate, marking him as one of the standout talents. As more recruits step forward, Su Ning notices the pattern. Top talents get yellow plates, stronger passers get cyan, and ordinary qualifiers receive gray. When Su Ning's turn arrives, Xia Yuanxing's interest sharpens again as he reads the file on the 17-year-old at the Muscle-Bone Realm with intermediate external skill. Tao Jingxing is startled to learn Su Ning has already reached the Muscle-Bone Realm, and that shock hardens his own resolve to keep this boy tied to the village. Instead of dismissing him like the others, Xia Yuanxing asks directly whether Su Ning is even from Tao village at all. Su Ning answers that he is from Tao village despite his foreign surname, and that simple reply instantly eases Tao Jingxing's heart. At the end of the assessment, Xia Yuanxing hands Su Ning a cyan metal plate, confirming he made it into the Black Armored Guards. Su Ning is satisfied, but Tao Jin watches him from the side and hides a faint smile because she knows her own yellow plate ranks even higher. When Tao Qingyuan asks why she is smiling, Tao Jin calmly brushes it off as simple happiness for passing. Even Xia Yuanxing feels a little regretful, because he thought Su Ning deserved a yellow plate in the last test, but the 2 top slots had already gone to Tao Qingyuan and Tao Jin. After all 20 plates are handed out, Xia Yuanxing officially announces that the selected Yus are now Black Armored Guards recruits. Then he drops the real surprise. In just 10 days, they will be escorted to Kanyan County. The timing hits hard, because leaving that soon means they will not be home for the new year after all. Xia Yuanxing gives a final practical warning to wash out the eye medicine from the test. Then he and the other guards prepare to leave. Before heading home, Tao Qingping excitedly comes over and says he and Su Ning will be working together in the future. Su Ning is genuinely in good spirits, because joining the guards means steady resources and a much bigger martial world than the mountains around the village. Outside the field, Guiyi rushes up for the result, and Su Ning finally shows him the cyan plate. Tao Yunchuan visibly relaxes, and Guiyi jokes proudly that he now has a brother in the Black Armored Guards. Tao Yunchuan hurries Su Ning home to tell Su Lian the good news, and all around the village, the families of the successful recruits are already celebrating early. 10 days later, 5 carriages wait outside Tao village as the selected youths gather to leave for Kanyan County. After saying goodbye to his family, Su Ning stands among the departing group feeling unexpectedly heavy, because this time he may not come home for a long while. His thoughts drift especially to Tao Tao, and the excitement of leaving is mixed with a real sense of separation. During the send-off, Tao Jingxing reminds everyone that they are still Tao village people and must support each other inside the guards. Then he singles out Tao Qingyuan in front of everyone and openly places him in charge of helping the others. Su Ning immediately sees what that means. Tao Jingxing is planting Tao Qingyuan as the center of the Tao village faction inside the Black Armored Guards. Once the final encouragements are over, the recruits climb into the carriages and roll out toward Kanyan County. In less than half a day, the group reaches Kanyan County and is taken straight to a newly opened Black Armored Guards camp. The escorts tell them they will rest here for 2 days until all 100 newcomers arrive and Master Wei comes to see them. Su Ning ends up sharing a room with Tao Qingping, and the two start settling into their first barracks room. When Tao Qingping invites him to dinner, Su Ning stays behind because Su Lian packed him homemade pies before he left. Alone in the room, Su Ning eats the last taste of home and quietly feels what it means to be away now. Afterward he decides to walk around and learn the layout of the brand new camp for himself. But the moment he opens the door, Tao Qingping comes rushing back in a panic with news that Tao Village and Tan Village are already clashing at the dining hall. Tao Qingping splits off to call more help, and Su Ning heads straight for the dining hall because he cannot ignore a fight involving his own village. Before he even reaches it, Su Ning hears the shouting, and outside the dining hall he finds Tao Village and Tan Village facing off in a tense standoff. Tao Qingyuan stands at the front for Tao Village, while a long-haired young man in a fur coat, Tan Fengying, leads the Tan Village side. Su Ning quickly spots Tao Qingge curled up on the ground in pain, making it obvious Tao Village has already taken the first hit. Tao Qingyuan angrily demands an explanation, saying Tan Village hurt one of his people and still has the nerve to protect the attackers. Tan Fengying only sneers that weakness is Tao Village's own problem, making the insult even worse. Tao Qingyuan fires back that this is not a fair fight at all, just Tan Village bullying others after arriving a day earlier and trying to monopolize the public dining hall. Instead of backing down, Tan Fengying warns Tao Village to stay in line or more people will get hurt. That threat is enough to ignite the whole scene, and once someone from Tao Village hurls a leftover bun, both sides finally explode into a brawl. More Tao Village people arrive with Tao Qingping, even bringing Tao Jin, and the messy fistfight only gets bigger. Su Ning jumps in too, but unlike the others, he keeps his head and fights with careful, selective hits instead of blind rage. He keeps darting to spots where Tao Village is struggling, lands a few sharp punches, and slips away before anyone can lock him down. When he notices Tao Jin trading nasty blows with a Tan Village girl, Su Ning decides that helping Tao Qingyuan beat the enemy leader will matter more. So he slips behind Tao Qingyuan and Tan Fengying, waiting for the one opening Tan Fengying never sees coming. The moment Tan Fengying turns the wrong way, Su Ning drives a hard punch straight into his face. Tan Fengying staggers in fury and tries to turn on Su Ning, but Tao Qingyuan instantly capitalizes and smashes him again. Su Ning adds one more clean hit, leaving the Tan Village leader dazed after 3 straight punches. Only then does a short, stout Black Armored Guard finally step in and roar for everyone to stop if they do not want to be thrown out of Kanyan County. His punishment is surprisingly light: no dinner for anyone tonight, then immediate dismissal. Before leaving, the guard gives Su Ning an extra look, because he noticed that this one recruit stayed calm and fought smarter than the rest. The two groups separate at last, but Tan Fengying clutches his bleeding nose and points at Su Ning as the one he plans to remember. On the walk back, Tao Qingyuan comes to Su Ning himself and openly thanks him for that well-timed punch. Su Ning jokes that he thought Tao Qingyuan might hate the interference, but Tao Qingyuan makes it clear he only cares about winning, not empty fairness. That answer surprises Su Ning, because the polished future clan head turns out to be much less rigid than he looks. Tao Qingyuan still worries this first-day clash is only the beginning, but Su Ning points out that the guard watched for a while before stopping them and barely punished anyone. Together they realize the message behind that. the black armored guards may actually want these village recruits to stay aggressive. By the time they reach the barracks, Tao Qingyuan formally invites Su Ning to help each other from now on, and Su Ning accepts without hesitation. The next morning, Su Ning and Tao Qingping head out hungry for breakfast after a rough first night in camp. Outside, the Tao village recruits greet Su Ning warmly, and he realizes yesterday's fight already changed how they see him. His standing rose fast because everyone saw him fight beside Tao village, and Tao Qingyuan openly speaking with him made that approval even stronger. At the dining hall, the Tao and Tan village groups lock eyes like enemies, but this time both sides hold back. Su Ning's first meal in the hall surprises him, because even breakfast here is packed with meat and there is no limit on portions. He piles up a pancake, meat, and porridge, then sits with Tao Qingping while Tao Qingyuan casually joins them. Tao Qingping mutters that Tan village must hate them now, and Su Ning answers with a small smile that the feeling clearly goes both ways. Tao Qingyuan mentions Song village arrived last night, and Su Ning notices the hall is now full of newcomers clustering by village. When Tao Qingyuan calls Tao Jin over, Su Ning and Tao Qingping squeeze aside to make room for the 4 Tao village girls who pass the selection. Tao Jin ends up seated right between Su Ning and Tao Qingyuan, but she keeps her head down and eats in silence. Watching her, Su Ning privately decides he still dislikes Tao Jin's proud attitude, even if he keeps that judgment to himself. Breakfast is cut short when the stocky guard from last night storms in and orders every newcomer to gather at the school field for Master Wei's speech. That announcement kills everyone's appetite, because once Master Wei speaks, their real duties are about to begin. By the time Su Ning reaches the school field, recruits are already pouring in from every direction to avoid making a bad first impression. Tao Qingyuan takes charge of the 20 Tao village recruits and lines them up as each village gathers into its own block. Captain Chu immediately breaks up those gaps and forces the groups closer together, warning that anyone who talks during the speech will be punished. A team of black armored guards enters first, and the entire field falls quiet on its own. Then a thin man in white walks in with his officers, and even Xia Yuanxing follows behind him with obvious respect. Without needing any display of force, Wei Changqing makes it clear he is the man in charge of the black armored guards in Kangyun County. He starts with a simple welcome, congratulating the recruits and telling them to work hard and become the backbone of the county guards. His second point gets everyone's full attention, because he lays out the resource rewards tied to gray, cyan, and yellow plates. Gray plate holders get less silver, cyan plate holders get better pay and a swallowtail flower, and yellow plate holders receive the stronger Qingludan. The crowd's mood splits at once, with gray plates disappointed, cyan plates mixed, and yellow plates quietly pleased. Su Ning stays calm, but the mention of Qingludan catches his attention because he knows it is a refined spirit medicine far better than a normal herb. He remembers that a dan costs as much as rare spirit medicine but is absorbed far more efficiently, which makes him even more curious about its value. Since Tao Qingyuan holds a yellow plate, Su Ning quietly decides he may get a chance to judge the Qingludan's worth up close later. Wei Changqing follows that with a hook for everyone below the top rank, saying plate levels are not fixed forever. He reveals that every 3 months there will be one-on-one challenges, and lower plate holders can seize a higher plate by winning. The rule immediately sounds dangerous to Su Ning, because a cyan plate like his can be dragged down by challengers just as easily as it can climb higher. He also sees the unfair side of it, since young talents with great potential but weaker present strength will become obvious targets. As those hungry looks spread through the ranks, Su Ning realizes the system is built to keep newcomers competing instead of uniting. He understands the deeper message too. The black armored guards are using village recruits as pieces in a larger local power game, even while feeding them resources. Wei Changqing's third point raises the stakes even further, urging everyone to train hard because bigger opportunities are coming. He finally reveals that within 3 years Kangyun County will gain spots to enter the Source faction, and some of those places may go to these recruits. That news hits Su Ning hard, because this is the first time he has heard the black armored guards could open a path to the martial arts holy land. Then he notices Tao Qingyuan, Tao Jin, and Tan Fengying are barely surprised, which tells him some village insiders knew this in advance. Su Ning immediately makes up his mind that whatever game is being played around him, he has to fight for one of those Source faction spots. With the speech over, Wei Changqing hands control of the new camp to Captain Chu and leaves the field. Captain Chu tells them duty postings will be announced the next day and warns everyone to report within 3 days with their plates. As the crowd disperses, Su Ning stays calm about doing chores, but many others are visibly annoyed that duty will cut into their training. A few days later, Su Ning arrives in Kangyun County to report at Maple Lane with his cyan plate and identity papers in hand. Maple Lane turns out to be a whole district in the southeast of the county, not just one street, and it is busy enough to matter. Su Ning also learns his post is unusual, because most station recruits were assigned in groups, while he was sent here alone. Dressed in black guard clothes, light armor, and a new sword, he stops to ask a street vendor where the Maple Lane post is. The old man recognizes that uniform instantly and answers with obvious nerves, which gives Su Ning a fresh look at the guard's reputation in the city. As he walks on, pedestrians and hawkers keep avoiding him, and the whole street goes cautious whenever a black armored guard passes. That reaction makes him realize just how deeply the Black Armored Guard's dominance is rooted in Kanyan County. Following the directions, he finally reaches the Maple Lane Black Armored Guard's post, a place that looks like a small yamen from the outside. Before Su Ning can even introduce himself, a gate guard asks if he is Master Su and says Lieutenant Chin has already been waiting for him. That tells Su Ning his arrival was reported in advance, and the guard quickly leads him inside with almost flustered politeness. Inside, the station catches Su Ning off guard with a giant tree and carefully arranged flowers, more like a garden courtyard than a rough outpost. When the guard says Lieutenant Chin personally arranged the place, Su Ning starts guessing this post may be quieter than most. The guard brings him through to the backyard, stops at one room, and tells him Lieutenant Chin is waiting inside. Su Ning straightens his clothes, steps forward, and knocks on the door to meet his new superior. Su Ning reports to Maple Lane Guard Station and finds Lieutenant Chen alone in a quiet room, looking drained instead of battle-ready. Instead of giving him work, Chenren tells Su Ning Maple Lane is easy, the city guards handle most trouble, and he can focus on martial practice while still taking his pay. Chenren dismisses him almost immediately, and Su Ning walks out feeling the whole station is strangely lifeless. Outside, the city guard guide asks if he needs anything, and Su Ning first checks where his assigned study is before deciding to look around the area instead. Su Ning asks about the expensive flowers around the station, and Feng Xigua reveals they were bought by Deyuan Trading Company for Lieutenant Chin. When Feng Xigua says Deyuan's headquarters are in Yuning City, Su Ning quietly connects the company to the capital and the source faction. Su Ning asks the guard's name, and Feng Xigua lights up at being remembered by a black armored guard. Su Ning presses further and learns the station's other black armored guards rarely show up. Because Maple Lane is so safe, the city guards handle daily patrols. Feng Xigua finally lets slip that Chenren comes in mostly to grow flowers, which confirms Su Ning's bad first impression of this posting. Once they reach Maple Lane's business street, Su Ning sees a prosperous district packed with silk, medicine, jewelry, and other shops. Feng Xigua proudly says Kanyan County grew under Black Armored Guard rule, but after what he just saw at the station, Su Ning can't fully share that confidence. Su Ning asks to see Deyuan Trading Company's stores and is stunned to hear the company owns most of Maple Lane's commercial streets. That makes Maple Lane feel even more off to Su Ning, and before he can dwell on it, shouting erupts from farther up the street. At a spacious medicinal shop, two thugs throw a cotton-padded villager into the street, while the shopkeeper tries to force him to accept less money than promised. When the villager clings to him and demands the agreed price for his village's goods, the shopkeeper signals the thugs to beat him with sticks. The beating stops cold the moment the shopkeeper notices Su Ning standing in the crowd in Black Armored Guard uniform. Under Su Ning's gaze, the shopkeeper instantly changes face, pretends it was all a misunderstanding, and pays the villager the missing 300 taels. The crowd disperses, but Su Ning stays put, making it clear he saw exactly what just happened. The shopkeeper hurriedly invites him inside, and Su Ning decides to inspect the Deyuan store for himself with Feng Xigua following. Inside, Su Ning finds a well-stocked medicinal shop with plenty of decent herbs, which only makes Deyuan look stronger. On the second floor, Su Ning stops in front of a swallowtail flower and notices Deyuan is selling it at a steep markup. Trying to win him over, the shopkeeper offers the swallowtail flower at half price and even says he can take it on credit. Su Ning refuses politely because he doesn't want to get tangled up with Deyuan before he understands them. Then an older man steps in, scolds the shopkeeper for being stingy, and boldly says the flower should simply be given to Master Su. Yu Xinghe introduces himself as Deyuan's deputy manager, and calmly reveals they already knew Su Ning was arriving in Maple Lane yesterday. When Yu Xinghe says Deyuan is effectively the host of Maple Lane, Su Ning hears the real message. This company sees itself as the district's true master. Yu Xinghe keeps testing him and has a maid bring over a fine wooden box filled with 3 crystal-clear Qingludan. Su Ning pinches one Qingludan and quietly checks it through his martial arts panel. The result disappoints him, because one expensive Qingludan only holds 3 energy units, making refined pills a bad deal for his direct absorption method. Watching that calm reaction, Yu Xinghe assumes Su Ning can be handled with money too, just like the other black armored guards tied to Deyuan. Holding the box of Qingludan in the medicine shop, Su Ning pauses long enough for Yu Xinghe to assume the young guard is already wavering. Then Su Ning quietly puts the pills back and says the gift is too valuable, so he will not accept it. Su Ning is tempted by what the pills could be sold for, but he realizes taking them would put him in Deyuan Trading Company's debt. He has already seen enough to know Maple Lane is being run by Deyuan on the surface, but Su Ning refuses to believe the higher black armored guards will tolerate that forever. When Yu Xinghe tries one more smooth line about it just being a friendly gesture, Su Ning keeps his manners but firmly leaves no opening. Su Ning cuts the conversation short, calls Feng Xigua to leave with him, and walks out before Yu Xinghe can keep pressing. After they leave, the shopkeeper mutters that Su Ning cannot be bought, but Yu Xinghe only scoffs and points out that even Maple Lane's station head is already under their control. Yu Xinghe is still unsettled, because Su Ning does not act like a desperate outsider chasing money and resources the way he expected. In the end, Yu Xinghe decides this is only a delay and confidently says Su Ning will be forced to accept the same pills in private later. Out on the street, Suning calls the whole thing a shame, while Feng Xigua follows in stunned silence after watching him walk away from 1,500 taels worth of pills. Suning uses the moment to ask directly how close the Yuan Trading Company is to the Maple Lane Guard Station. After hesitating, Feng Xigua admits the ties are very deep. Lieutenant Chen and Yuan's chief manager are close, and the whole station has been pulled into their control. Suning immediately sees what Feng Xigua wants. This ordinary city guard is betting on him because none of the other black armored guards ever valued him. So Suning asks about taking city guard deputies, and Feng Xigua nearly holds his breath waiting for the answer. When Suning says he will take Feng Xigua under him, the old city guard all but erupts with loyalty on the spot. Suning takes his new helper back toward the station and tells him to start explaining how Maple Lane's black armored guards really operate. Over the next few days, Suning quietly expands his investigation by asking Tao Qingyuan and the others to check the other guards' ties to Yuan Trading Company. At the same time, Suning keeps walking Maple Lane with Feng Xigua, learning the district firsthand instead of trusting the lazy station around him. What he sees only confirms his bad impression, because the other black armored guards barely show up and treat the post like a formality. One day after returning to his study, Suning is told that Lieutenant Chen wants to see him immediately. As soon as the messenger leaves, Suning already suspects this summons is about the Yuan Trading Company coming at him from above. In Qinren's study, Suning finds a tired station head slumped in his seat, only looking a little more alive when his eyes drift to the flowers and plants beside him. After a hollow bit of small talk, Qinren gets to the point and asks whether Suning has been in contact with the Yuan. Suning answers honestly that he met Deputy Manager Yu, and Qinren immediately begins selling the Yuan as a heroic, trustworthy pillar of Kangyun County. He lays it out in layers. The Yuan helped build the county, controls a huge share of its trade, pays heavy taxes, and should be trusted without question. Suning says nothing, because by now he has already gathered enough information to make his own judgment about the Yuan and the station. From what he has learned in the last few days, Suning knows many guard stations resent the Yuan's growing arrogance even if the higher-ups have not moved against it yet. So Suning settles on a careful line. He will either tie himself to the Yuan nor openly fight them until the bigger picture becomes clear. Seeing Suning stay silent, Qinren finally pulls out the same wooden box of 3 Qingludan and sets it on the table between them. Suning instantly understands the trap. Yu Xinghe could not buy him openly, so the Yuan simply sent the bribe through his own superior instead. Qinren dresses it up as concern for Suning's assessment, saying these pills will help him keep his cyan plate, and maybe even fight for a yellow one. When Suning still does not reach for it, Qinren's tone turns cold and he reminds him who is personally delivering this gift. Suning finally steps forward and takes the box, outwardly yielding so the pressure in the room breaks. Pleased with himself, Qinren tells Suning to practice well and remember to thank Yu Xinghe for the present. Suning leaves without showing much, but inside he sees Qinren as a ridiculous puppet and decides the pills will be sent back a second time. Back at his study, Suning finds Feng Xigua waiting outside in obvious worry after hearing he was called in. Feng Xigua's eagerness is no act anymore, because being attached to Suning has already raised his standing with other guards and even improved things at home. Once the door is shut, Suning puts the wooden box on the table and orders Feng Xigua to return it to Yu Xinghe at the Yuan. When Feng Xigua realizes Qinren forced the gift on him, Suning stays completely relaxed and makes his position plain. He still does not want it. Feng Xigua nervously warns that if Suning sends Yu Xinghe's gift back again, it will not just offend the Yuan Trading Company anymore, it will humiliate Lieutenant Qin directly. Suning stays steady and reminds Feng Xigua that Qinren is not his only superior, because Captain Chu stands above him too. Seeing Suning will not bend, Feng Xigua accepts it and carries the box out to return it to the Yuan himself. Once alone, Suning thinks it through and decides that as long as Chu Dayo is not secretly tied to the Yuan, Qinren cannot punish him without worrying about a captain's reaction. That evening Suning returns from Maple Lane to Campsite 3, where the new recruits all live together on light duty with plenty of time to train. Back in the room, Suning finds Tao Qingping already washing up after spending the whole day practicing martial arts. Tao Qingping warns him not to let the guard station eat up his time, because for new recruits, getting stronger matters more than anything else. Suning smoothly uses his prepared excuse and says he still gets enough free time at Maple Lane to keep training. Tao Qingping's mood lifts as he talks about Campsite 3's strange setup, with no lieutenant yet and a future chance for one of the newcomers to rise into that post. Suning jokes that if Tao Qingping really becomes lieutenant, he should remember to take care of him, and Tao Qingping clearly likes the idea more than he pretends. Their quiet night breaks when a city guard knocks at the door and says Captain Chu is summoning Suning to his study right away. Puzzled but alert, Suning puts his armor back on and heads out, guessing this sudden call is tied to trouble at Maple Lane. In Captain Chu's lamplit study, Chu Dayo greets Suning warmly enough to let him sit, but the relaxed opening only makes the real topic feel more dangerous. After a brief question about guard station work, Chu Dayo suddenly asks why Suning refused the Yuan Trading Company's gift. Suning answers carefully that he does not trust rewards that come without honest work, even while bracing for another round of pressure. Then Chu Dayo takes out the same kind of beautiful wooden box, and for one sharp moment Su-ning wonders if even the captain has been bought too. Chu Dayo laughs off that fear and makes it clear he is not about to imitate Shinren and force the gift on him. That reaction finally lets Su-ning breathe, because he realizes Chu Dayo is pleased by his refusal, not offended by it. When Su-ning asks how the return pills ended up here, Chu Dayo reveals someone tried to sneak the box under Su-ning's pillow, but it was intercepted and brought to him instead. Chu Dayo adds one more piece of evidence and produces a dart, showing that this time Dayuan sent bribery and a threat together. Su-ning sees the message immediately. If he still refused, Dayuan Trading Company was ready to hurt him. Even with that ugly warning in front of him, Su-ning stays composed because Chu Dayo has already stepped in to shield him. Then Chu Dayo says something stranger than the threat itself and apologizes, hinting that Su-ning got dragged into this mess because of him. Chu Dayo tells him not to resent it yet, because this danger may also become Su-ning's chance if he understands the bigger game. Before explaining, Chu Dayo tests him by asking what he already knows about Dayuan, and Su-ning repeats Chinren's line about the company's importance to Kangyun County. But when Chu Dayo asks for his own judgment, Su-ning answers bluntly that Dayuan is greedy. Chu Dayo agrees and says both things are true. Dayuan once helped rebuild the county, but its past service does not excuse what it has become now. He explains that after Captain Kai Ching-han took over Campsite 1 8 years ago, Dayuan stopped acting like a mere merchant force and began digging into county power itself. According to Chu Dayo, Kai Chi-han and Dayuan grew so close that the company even started influencing black armored guard policy in Kangyun County. Maple Lane turns out to be the worst example, because Chu Dayo says that station is puppeted by Dayuan from top to bottom. Su-ning naturally asks why Commander Wei allows this, and Chu Dayo answers that Wei Chongqing has the rank to intervene but no desire to stir up trouble while he is stuck here. Chu Dayo says the balance only started to change when Campsite 3 was built, and he was promoted, joining Xia Yuanqing and Ning Fengwen in pushing back against Kai Ching-han's side. Only then does Chu Dayo admit the personal truth. Maple Lane had asked for no newcomers, but he deliberately forced Su-ning into their strongest base anyway. Su-ning finally sees his role clearly. To Chu Dayo's faction, he was a blade planted in enemy ground, dangerous if left untouched and worth buying off if possible. Chu Dayo does not deny using him and instead says the 3 captains are backing him, so if he helps cut down Dayuan's power, he will become Campsite 3's first lieutenant. Su-ning understands that the title is tempting, but the bigger truth is that he was never really given a choice in this fight. He still asks the question that matters to him: why pick a Cyan Plate rookie like him from Maple Lane instead of one of the stronger Yellow Plate recruits? Chu Dayo says part of it was chance, but he had already checked Su-ning's background and noticed that, even as an outsider, he had earned real acceptance in Tao Village. He also remembers watching Su-ning in the recruit fight and deciding that Su-ning was not just strong enough, but smart, restrained, and good at finding the right opening. That is why Chu Dayo chose a wise man over a merely strong one, trusting Su-ning to resist corruption, protect himself, and strike hard if the timing ever came. With the truth finally laid out, Su-ning feels far clearer about the forces around Maple Lane and how he has to handle Dayuan from now on. Chu Dayo ends the talk by tossing him the seized wooden box and saying the pills are his now, because they were confiscated lawfully before reaching him. Su-ning thanks him, but instead of leaving, he hesitates with the box in his hands and asks whether the 3 Qinglu Dawn can be traded for silver tails instead. The next day at Maple Lane Guard Station, Su-ning arrives carrying a long wooden box, and Feng Sigua quietly warns him that several unfamiliar black armored guards are already gathered in Lieutenant Chen's study. When Su-ning hears the meeting did not call for him, he just smiles and decides it is none of his business. Su-ning turns serious and orders Feng Sigua to guard his study door and let no one in until he finishes, even if Lieutenant Chen sends for him. Soon after Su-ning shuts himself inside, a city guard comes to summon him to Chen's meeting, but Feng Sigua remembers the order and chooses to keep standing there. Inside the study, Su-ning opens the wooden box and reveals 6 neat swallowtail flowers, all bought after he traded Chu Dayo's 3 Qinglu pills for silver and quietly shopped outside Dayuan's network. Seeing the 6 flowers laid out in front of him, Su-ning realizes they will give him 18 energy at once and finally let him push his cultivation again. He absorbs all 6 flowers one by one, savoring the surge each time, then burns the withered remains so he leaves no trace behind. Su-ning checks his martial arts panel and sees his stored energy jump to 24, more than he has ever had before. With no hesitation, Su-ning pours 12 energy into Spring Breeze tactic and breaks through to Mortal Round 3rd stage, Inner Enrichment. The breakthrough hits hard, his blood seems to boil, power floods every limb, and he can feel his whole body being reforged into the mortal limit. As Su-ning tests his body, he understands why internal skill matters so much now that his stronger physique can amplify every external technique he uses. Now armed with Inner Enrichment and his knife art, Su-ning judges that he should be the strongest among the new recruits and have little trouble taking a yellow plate in the assessment. But when he checks the next step, the panel demands 25 energy for Mortal Round 4th stage, a steep jump that shows the road ahead has changed. Su-ning quickly understands why. The first 3 mortal stages sharpen the body, but the 4th begins true internal chi, the level black armored guards consider the threshold for becoming a lieutenant. That leaves Suning with 12 energy and a real choice: perfect his Gale Knife method, strengthen Source Breath bodybuilding tactic, or save everything for the future Chi realm. Elsewhere in Shinren's study, all 6 other Maple Lane guards have gathered without Suning, and Lieutenant Chen sits there already angry that the newcomer still has not shown up. Chen's mood is worse because he heard Suning sent back the Qinglu pills again, which feels like a direct refusal to accept his control. After confirming the message was delivered, Chen decides the insult has gone far enough and orders Pan Du to drag Suning over personally. Pan Du reaches Suning's courtyard and finds Feng Xigua still guarding the door, but Feng Xigua, scared as he is, refuses to move aside. Pan Du mocks a mere city guard for daring to stop him, and Feng Xigua keeps his arm out anyway because he already chose his side. Pan Du answers with one brutal hit to the stomach, knocking Feng Xigua down and leaving him coughing blood on the ground. Even half-conscious and choking on blood, Feng Xigua still grabs Pan Du's leg and refuses to let him reach Suning's door. For one bitter second, Feng Xigua regrets that this loyalty might get him killed, but he still decides he would make the same choice again. Just as Pan Du tries to crush him aside, Suning appears behind him out of nowhere and smashes him across the face with a single heavy slap. The blow leaves Pan Du reeling, bruised, and barely able to open one eye before he shouts that Suning is attacking a fellow guard. Suning grabs Pan Du by the collar, slams him against the wall, and throws the accusation right back at him for beating their own people. Then Suning humiliates him in public, holding him pinned by the neck and slapping him again and again, while Pan Du can only flail and choke. From the ground, Feng Xigua watches through the pain and can only think one thing as Pan Du gets his payback: deserved. Pan Du drops cold after Suning hits far harder than a muscle bone realm fighter can endure. The gap is brutal now, because Suning has already broken into inner enrichment and pushed his Source Breath bodybuilding tactic to the intermediate realm, leaving him with 3 energy still in reserve. Suning tosses Pan Du aside after confirming the injury is serious, but not life-threatening. Instead of dwelling on Pan Du, Suning rushes to help the pale and exhausted Feng Xigua stand. Feng Xigua can barely speak, but Suning quietly tells him he did well and walks him out. Seeing a city guard on duty, Suning immediately takes charge of Feng Xigua's treatment. He orders a stretcher, the best medicine available, and a full bill sent back to him so the station can pay for everything. Feng Xigua wants to protest the expense, but Suning cuts him off and makes it clear he will handle it. After Feng Xigua is carried away, Suning stands in the courtyard staring at Chenren's flowers with his anger pressed flat under a cold face. It is the first time someone has been hurt because of him, and the guilt only hardens his resolve. Remembering Chu Daio's words that he is the foundation, Suning decides to become a foundation strong enough to push back. With that, he walks straight toward Lieutenant Chen's study instead of backing down. Inside the study, 5 men are already waiting, annoyed that Pan Du still has not returned with Suning. Before Chenren can vent his impatience, Suning pushes the door open and walks in on his own terms. Suning gives Chenren a formal greeting, but his straight back and flat tone make it obvious he is not coming here to submit. Zhuang Dingshi immediately jumps in, threatening the newcomer for not showing proper etiquette. Suning answers that threat with a faint smile and half a step back, already gripping a hidden dagger behind him. Zhuang Dingshi is ready to explode, but Chenren cuts in first and reminds Suning that Maple Lane has rules. Suning agrees at once, and that easy answer only makes the room feel more strained. Then Chenren notices the real problem. Pan Du was sent to fetch Suning, but Suning came back alone. Suning bluntly says Pan Du beat a city guard for no reason, so he taught him a lesson and left him lying outside. That finally shatters Chenren's composure, and he slams the desk in open fury. He orders Zhuang Dingshi to throw Suning into confinement, deciding he has tolerated enough. Zhuang Dingshi reaches for him, and the room braces for a clean arrest. Instead, Suning whips his arm free and knocks Zhuang Dingshi's grab away on the spot. Zhuang Dingshi roars that Suning dares resist an order and answers with a heavy punch. Suning does not dodge at all and drives his own fist straight into it. One clash is enough, and sweat bursts from Zhuang Dingshi as the bones in his forearm crack. Chenren is stunned, because one of the few men he relies on just got broken by Suning in a single punch. Since Suning's file said he was only at muscle bone realm, Chenren instantly realizes this strength was hidden on purpose. He pieces together the political trap at once and concludes Chu Daio deliberately planted Suning in Maple Lane to make him underestimate a dangerous piece. Suning stays calm and says he did not resist authority at all. He punished Pan Du because Pan Du broke the rules first. Then he drives the point deeper. As a man from Campsite 3, any serious restriction on him should go through Chu Daio first. He even lies that Chu Daio has business for him, then turns to leave before anyone can recover the initiative. No one stops him, because Chu Daio's shadow now weighs heavier than Chenren's anger. Once the room empties, Chenren is left at the window with only his thoughts, his pet birds, and a rising sense that the station is about to become a battlefield. That uneasy thought pushes him into a decision. He has to go to Daiyuan Trading Company and find its chief manager. Meanwhile, Suning goes back to his own study knowing perfectly well that Chu Daio never called for him at all. He understands the situation clearly now. If he wants to survive at Maple Lane, he has to keep using Chu Dayo's name as a shield. Back at the courtyard, Pandu is already gone, and Su Ning does not care enough to find out whether he walked off or was carried away. About an hour later, the city guard returns from the hospital with Feng Xigua's treatment bill. The cost is only 20 taels, which tells Su Ning Feng Xigua's injuries may not be as bad as they first looked. Relieved but still practical, Su Ning sends the bill off to the station accountant to settle it. For the next 2 weeks, Su Ning keeps his distance from the station and only shows up every few days. During that stretch, Chu Dayo meets him again and finally lays out the deeper feud with Kai Ching-hun's side. Chu Dayo says his alliance with Xia Yuanxing and Ning Fengwen has finally surpassed Kai Ching-han in overall power, but Kai Ching-han is clearly preparing a counterplay. He warns Su Ning to watch his back, because Dayuan Trading Company may answer with sneak attacks instead of open moves. When they part, Chu Dayo gives him 500 taels, and Su Ning accepts because this fight is going to cost money. A few more days pass, and by the end of the year Kangyun County is already wrapped in New Year energy. Campsite 3 hands out newcomer subsidies, and Su Ning receives 200 taels, a swallowtail flower, and his small Maple Lane salary on top. Even with nearly 800 taels saved, he decides not to sink everything into spirit medicine anymore. Spirit medicine no longer boosts him as fundamentally as before, and he also needs money for connections, daily life, and sending support home. On the night before the holiday, Tao Qingping asks Su Ning what he plans to do for the new year. Su Ning says he has no special plans, even though he would really rather go home. He cannot leave anyway, because newcomers only get 5 days off after their first assessment, and are not allowed to leave Kangyun County without orders. So Tao Qingping brings better news instead. Tao Qingyuan is inviting about 20 Tao village people to Rafeng restaurant the day after New Year's Day. Su Ning likes the idea, because the scattered Tao village newcomers have not truly gathered as one group in a long time. New Year's Day arrives with firecrackers outside, and Tao Qingping hurries Su Ning up for the camp celebration. Today they can skip the black armored guard uniform, and Tao Qingping proudly wears a brand new cotton coat. Su Ning changes into the cotton coat Su Lian bought for him before he came to the county city. Outside, campsite 3 is covered in red lanterns, couplets, and festive decorations, and even strangers greet each other warmly. After breakfast in the dining hall, everyone heads to the school field to hear Wei Changqing's New Year address. Wei Changqing offers New Year congratulations, then reminds the newcomers to train hard, do their duty, and live up to the black armored guard's name. Once the short ceremony ends, Tao Qingyuan immediately starts gathering the Tao village people together. He announces that he is treating everyone at Runfeng restaurant for lunch, and the group bursts into cheers. What really excites them is not the food, but finally celebrating the new year together again as people from the same village. When someone points out it is too early for lunch, Tao Qingyuan proudly reveals he already booked the room and prepared tea, dried fruit, and nuts. The crowd cheers him again, and for once Su Ning is fully pulled into the easy festive mood. The group of 20 sets off for the restaurant, with Su Ning falling near the end of the line beside Tao Jin. Tao Jin unexpectedly gives Su Ning a simple Happy New Year, and he answers with a smiling wish for great fortune. That answer catches Tao Jin off guard, because she expected a martial greeting from him, not something so ordinary and light. Su Ning brushes it off with a casual same thing, making it clear he does not want a longer conversation. So Tao Jin falls quiet and studies him from behind, suddenly aware that something about Su Ning has changed. She realizes his temperament is far more confident and capable now than before he came to the county city. That makes Tao Jin wonder how far his martial arts have really advanced, especially since she herself has been stuck in inner enrichment for a long time and knows how hard the next step is. On New Year's Day, Tao Qingyuan leads the Tao village group through Yunshi Alley toward Runfeng restaurant, greeting locals like a man already used to being followed. Just as the restaurant comes into view, Su Ning notices their groups slow down because Tan Fengying's people are arriving from the other side at the exact same time. Su Ning immediately tenses up, because the Tao and Tan groups are still carrying bad blood from their last clash and another public fight would look terrible in front of Wei Changqing's warning to stop internal feuds. Tao Qingyuan clearly wants no trouble and heads for the door anyway, but Tan Fengying steps in front of him and blocks the path. Tan Fengying insists his side should enter first, turning a wide doorway into a power contest instead of a real argument about space. Tao Qingyuan tries one last peaceful answer, saying they can go in together, but he also knows backing down in front of both groups would damage his standing. Tan Fengying refuses again and keeps pressing, because he is really trying to rebuild his authority inside Tan village after feeling his influence slip. His confidence is not empty either, since Tan Fengying has secretly pushed his source breath bodybuilding tactic into the elementary realm and believes that gives him the edge over the other village leaders. When Tao Qingyuan brushes his arm aside and steps forward, Tan Fengying grabs his sleeve and finally pushes the standoff into a fight. Both men raise their fists, and Tan Fengying is ready to strike first with the confidence of someone who thinks he will win. Before either side can explode, Su Ning suddenly steps between them and catches both incoming punches at once. Tao Qingyuan is stunned, because Su Ning blocks an inner enrichment punch so easily that his strength can no longer be mistaken for mere muscle bone level. Tan Fengying is just as shaken, and the man he used to dismiss as tricky now suddenly feels genuinely dangerous. Suning calmly reminds both sides that this is New Year's Day, that Wei Changqing wants harmony among their own people, and that sharing the same restaurant should be a good thing instead of a reason to bleed. The two leaders finally pull back, not because the grudge is gone, but because Suning has given them a way to retreat without losing face. Now that he is strong enough to control the field, Suning makes a deliberate choice to stop the clash, partly to protect Tao Village from trouble and partly because he already sensed Tao Qingyuan would lose this matchup. From Tan Fengying's breathing alone, Suning catches the real reason for that danger. Tan Fengying has already reached elementary source breath bodybuilding. Nearby, Tao Jin watches Suning with a complicated expression, quietly feeling the shift in power around him. With Suning holding the center, Tao Qingyuan and Tan Fengying exchange stiff New Year greetings and finally let both groups enter side by side. Inside the second-floor private room Tao Qingyuan booked, the Tao Village group settles into a warm holiday space with tea, nuts, a fireplace, and a clear view of lion dances below. Once everyone is seated, Tao Qingyuan personally thanks Suning for stopping the fight and hands him a cup of tea. Suning says he simply did not want anyone injured on a holiday, and he points out that even Captain Chu's faction games do not mean their own people should hurt each other for nothing. Tao Qingyuan carefully brings up the fact that Captain Chu has visited Suning twice, testing how deep Suning's link to the higher struggle really goes. Suning answers honestly that it is all tied to Maple Lane, and Tao Qingyuan immediately connects that to Daiyuan Trading Company's fight with Captain Chu's side. Suning admits that being on Captain Chu's side makes life at the guard station awkward, and Tao Qingyuan can only agree that it is a troublesome position. Tao Qingyuan wants to ask how far Suning's martial arts have advanced, but his sense of fairness stops him from prying into something Suning did not choose to reveal. He covers the moment with a simple New Year toast, and the two clink cups with mutual respect instead of suspicion. Privately, Tao Qingyuan even thinks that if Suning had been born into the Tao family, he might already be a rival for leadership, but the thought brings him no jealousy. After that, the room loosens back into celebration as Tao Qingyuan goes around greeting everyone one by one. Word of the doorway incident spreads fast inside the room, and more people come to greet Suning now that they have seen his strength with their own eyes. Some of them are already whispering that Suning might become Tao Village's third yellow plate newcomer when the next assessment arrives. Without anyone saying it out loud, Suning has already started replacing Tao Jin as the second most respected figure in the group. The meal itself is warm and noisy, and because no one has gone home in a long time, the shared company of people from the same village eases the homesickness of the holiday. Suning lets himself relax with the group for once, but he still notices that Tao Jin is eating in silence with a blank expression. He leaves it alone, because the two of them are not close enough for him to step into whatever she is feeling. Elsewhere in another private room, Tan Fengying spends the same holiday meal in secret unease after realizing Suning may soon be aimed directly at his position. The more Tan Fengying thinks about the coming assessment, the more certain he becomes that Tao Village will use Suning to attack his yellow plate standing. By the end of lunch, he has already made up his mind that as soon as this meal ends, he needs to go train harder. After lunch, the Tao Village group breaks into smaller circles to enjoy the holiday around town instead of returning to camp together. Tao Qingyuan invites Suning to join the outing, but Suning declines because he has someone else he wants to see. Instead, Suning buys cakes, sweets, and New Year gifts before heading alone to the eastern residential district to visit the injured Feng Xigua. He reaches the neighborhood quickly, but since he only knows the area and not the exact house, he has to stop and ask a group of children for directions. One bold little boy recognizes the name city guard Uncle Xigua and offers to lead Suning there himself. When Suning tries to reward the boy with money, the child refuses because his mother taught him not to take cash from strangers so easily. Amused, Suning gives the children candy instead, and they accept that happily before scattering off to divide it among themselves. Watching the children leave briefly makes Suning think of Tao Tao and wonder whether she misses him back in the village. He turns to the right house at last, a modest private home decorated with spring couplets and lanterns that shows Feng Xigua is living decently by city standards. When Suning knocks and enters, the first person he meets is a broad, fierce-looking woman in the courtyard, and he immediately guesses this must be Feng Xigua's formidable wife. She starts out wary of the handsome stranger, but the moment he introduces himself as Suning, her whole attitude flips into startled respect. She immediately calls inside for Feng Xigua, shouting that Master Su has come. Feng Xigua hurries out looking shocked, and Suning quickly checks his condition, seeing that he is still pale and weak but no longer in real danger. When Suning says he came to visit because of the injury, Feng Xigua is deeply moved, because Suning has already given him leave, paid for good treatment, and even kept checking on him. Feng Xigua had actually been worrying that too much time off might cost him his place at the station, so Suning's personal visit reassures him even more. Inside the small home, Feng Xigua explains that only he and his wife are home for now because the children are out playing and the rest of the family is gathering later. Suning settles onto a small stool by the strong stove fire, and the visit finally turns from official concern into a quiet, human New Year call. Even Feng Xigua's tough wife now serves Su Ning water with careful respect, not daring to show any of the resentment she once felt toward her husband's superior. At Feng Xigua's home, Su Ning drinks tea and openly says Feng Xigua was beaten because Pan Du came looking for him. Feng Xigua quickly denies blaming Su Ning and says the real problem was Pan Du's cruelty. He even says Su Ning already avenged him, so instead of resentment, he feels respected for the first time. Su Ning warns Feng Xigua to stay away from Pan Du at the station, but promises he will not ignore it if Pan Du attacks again. Feng Xigua grows even more loyal because Su Ning is only 17, already stronger than Pan Du, and looks like a future lieutenant in the making. When Su Ning gets up to leave, he suddenly presses a 100-tael note into Feng Xigua's hand. Feng Xigua is shocked because that money is almost a year's pay for him, and his wife cannot hide her reaction either. Feng Xigua tries to refuse because Su Ning also needs money for cultivation, but Su Ning says this is thanks for good work and practical funds for future errands. Feng Xigua and his wife walk Su Ning out, and Feng Xigua accepts the money with deep gratitude. Back inside, the couple stare at the note in silence because 100 taels is a huge sum for a family barely saving after daily costs and martial training for their children. Feng Xigua proudly says this proves Su Ning truly rewards his people, then reminds his wife the money should be used to help Su Ning when future errands come. After the holiday ends, Su Ning returns to Maple Lane and finds the station as slack as ever, with no black armored guards present and even the yard plants left to wilt. With nobody else around, Su Ning quietly handles patrols, local disputes, and assigned chores on his own while Dayuan's people stays silent. When Qinren finally returns, Su Ning keeps a calm face, but he knows this surface peace only lasts until Chu Dayo's side moves against Dayuan. Feng Xigua comes back on duty and takes over document work, which immediately makes Su Ning's daily load much lighter. Su Ning also notices the lower guards avoid standing near him when Qinren is present, but privately they have become much friendlier because he protects subordinates. After work, Su Ning skips heading straight back and goes to the roadside wonton stall he likes because the taste reminds him of Su Lian's cooking. The stall owner recognizes him right away, and Su Ning orders 3 big bowls as usual. The owner thoughtfully serves only 1 hot bowl first so the rest will not get cold. Just as Su Ning starts eating, he senses someone watching and spots a plain gray-coated man at the neighboring noodle stall. Su Ning calmly turns back to his meal, while the gray-clothed man wonders if he has been noticed. Su Ning finishes all 3 bowls without another glance, pays, and leaves as if nothing is wrong. The stalker relaxes a little, waits a moment, and then gets up to follow. Instead of returning to camp, Su Ning wanders through the night market and casually browses small goods while the man tails him from varying distances. After less than half an hour, Su Ning heads toward Campsite 3 by way of Maple Lane and the bamboo forest, and the stalker follows the whole route. The stalker feels confident in his tracking skills as Su Ning enters the dim bamboo forest and seems not to notice him at all. Then the man suddenly realizes Su Ning has disappeared from the path. A cold shift in the air makes him turn, and he finds Su Ning already behind him with a smile and a knife hidden at his back. The stalker tries to bolt, but Su Ning steps in and slashes across his escape line, cutting off only a corner of the gray coat. From that dodge alone, Su Ning realizes this man is also an inner enrichment and has trained body movement techniques. The man dives into denser bamboo to escape, but Su Ning's intermediate source breath bodybuilding makes him explosively faster, and he closes the gap anyway. Su Ning catches him within reach and cuts deep into the man's right arm, ruining his balance. Before the wounded man can recover, Su Ning seizes his neck, slams him down, and ignores his attempt to explain. Su Ning knocks him unconscious with one heavy strike, but still binds the wounded arm to keep him from bleeding out. Guessing the man is tied to Dayuan or Qinren, Su Ning decides not to question him himself, and drags him back to camp for professionals to handle. Su Ning reports to Chu Dayo that someone followed him, and says the man is already unconscious in confinement. Chu Dayo is not surprised and explains that since they are preparing to move against Kai Chi-han and Dayuan Trading Company, Su Ning has naturally become a surveillance target at Maple Lane. When Su Ning asks why the enemy watches a small figure like him instead of the camp itself, Chu Dayo calmly replies that their own camp may already have spies inside. Back at Campsite 3, Su Ning hears there may be spies in the camp and immediately remembers Dayuan already used city guards inside the camp to send him Qingludan. He cannot see what secrets a newcomer camp would even hold, and that confusion makes the warning feel even more ominous. Then Su Ning links it to Tao Qingping's earlier news that next year the recruits will patrol less and start military battle practice instead. That makes him suspect Chu Dayo, and Kai Qinghan may be heading toward a real confrontation, so he wisely stops asking questions about higher-level plans. Chu Dayo instead gives a direct order. Su Ning must tighten inspections in Maple Lane over the next few days and report anything unusual at once. Su Ning accepts the order, understanding that something big is about to move even if he still cannot see the whole board. Chu Dayo dismisses him and says he is going to interrogate the man who was stalking Su Ning. Late that night at Dayuan Trading Company, Deputy Manager Yu Xinghe waits in a dark room under Chief Manager Duani his gaze, already sweating with fear. When the missing stalker still has not returned, Yu Xinghe hurriedly admits this was his decision and starts explaining himself. Yu Xinghe says the next shipment is about to leave. Chu Dayo and Xia Yuanxing have become unusually tough, and he feared Su Ning might have noticed something while staying in Maple Lane every day. So Yu Xinghe sent Huijio to tail Su Ning, thinking the man was the best available option. That answer detonates Duaniha's temper, because Huijio knows far too much about their dealings. Duaniha snarls that if Huijio falls into Chu Dayo's hands and talks, Kai Qinghan cannot save them and even the Yuning city headquarters may cut them off. Yu Xinghe still tries to defend himself, saying everyone else was busy with the route arrangements, and Huijio seemed strong enough to handle it. Duaniha answers by hurling the oil lamp into Yu Xinghe's forehead, leaving him bleeding and too scared to even cry out. As the room drops into darkness, a man dressed all in black steps in, calmly relights the lamp, and reveals he already knows something went wrong. The black-clad man suggests delaying the delivery if things are getting troublesome. Instead of answering him right away, Duaniha looks at Yu Xinghe with chilling calculation, as if deciding what to do with his own subordinate. Then Duaniha lies smoothly, saying the shipment can still continue and there is no need to postpone anything. The black-clad man doubts that confidence, reminding him one shipment matters less than their long-term supply line. At the window, Duaniha looks out over moonlit Kangyum County and thinks of the more than 20 years he spent building his power here. His thoughts go back even further, to 30 years ago, when Dayuan sent him from Yuning City to seize markets as the Source faction stabilized the state. In Kangyum County he found a rival already tied to the black armored guards, so he borrowed help from a third party and crushed that competitor out of the market. That victory let Dayuan dominate local trade, and later his connection to Kai Qihan turned Duaniha into one of Kangyum County's most powerful men. But behind that success was a secret he always feared would kill him, because the third party he relied on was a magic faction. The story spells out why this is fatal. The Source faction has spent decades wiping out magic sects, whose techniques feed on other people and leave blood behind. Since colluding with a magic faction is punishable by death, Duaniha knows the path he chose is finally coming back for him. He turns back to Yu Xinghe, tells him to leave, and says he will find Kai Qinghan and deal with Huijio himself. Yu Xinghe still fears Huijio may already be in Chu Dayo's hands, but Duaniha insists he has his own methods and warns him not to make a mistake like this again. Relieved, Yu Xinghe promises to be more careful and finally withdraws for the night. The moment Yu Xinghe is gone, the man in black quietly points out the killing intent that flashed in Duaniha's eyes. Duaniha says he will not kill Yu Xinghe, but the man still has to pay for this disaster. Then Duaniha drops the real decision. They will not wait, they will ship immediately, and he will personally go along. When the man in black asks why he is suddenly rushing, Duaniha admits everything he just told Yu Xinghe was a lie. He is convinced Huijio has already fallen into Chu Dayo's hands, and once Chu Dayo starts torturing him, most of their secrets will spill out. That means the shipment itself no longer matters, because if they hesitate, Duaniha could lose every resource he built over the years. Since the black armored guards have not struck yet, he believes the interrogation may not have happened and this is their last narrow window to move first. The man in black realizes what this really means. Duaniha is preparing to abandon Kangyum County entirely. Duaniha admits there is no other choice, even though walking away from more than 20 years of work cuts deeper for him than anyone else. He quickly reshapes his future too, planning to use this chance to join the 7 Lion Gates with his 5th stage mortal realm strength and long experience. The man in black agrees, but asks one last question: what if Huijio was never captured after all? Duaniha says they will still deliver the goods first, watch the aftermath, and only return to normal if the black armored guards stay quiet. And if the worst really happens, he is ready to dump all the blame onto Yu Xinghe. With that settled, the man in black stands to move the shipment, and Duaniha goes out to arrange it personally. Meanwhile in Campsite 3's confinement room, the captured Huijio hangs bloodied in chains before Chu Dayo, pale and terrified after interrogation. Chu Dayo is stunned by what he has just learned. Dayuan Trading Company is tied directly to the 7 Lion Gates magic faction. Huijio has revealed that Dayuan regularly sends weapons, medicine, silver, and intelligence to the sect, even helping them avoid black armored guard hunts. For Chu Dayo, this changes everything, because he only expected merchant corruption and suddenly Su Ning's stalker has blown open a full magic faction case. He realizes even Wei Changqing cannot stay out of this now and decides he must report upward immediately. Because 2 hours have already passed since Huijio was captured, Chu Dayo assumes the people behind him may already be trying to run. He first orders his deputy to gather men and seal every Dayuan store, then immediately changes the order and sends Campsite 2 to handle it instead of inexperienced recruits. Chu Dayo then heads straight for Wei Changqing while the whole quiet county begins waking into crisis. By midnight, Kangyun County is sealed shut, with the gates blocked and entry and exit cut off. 5 black armored guard teams rush out of the city to hunt Duaniha and the 7 Lion Gates before they can vanish. At the same time, every Dayuan store is surrounded and the company's people are arrested overnight. The Maple Lane station is swept up too. Apart from Su Ning, Chen Ren, Pan Du, and Zhuang Dingshi, everyone else there has their freedom restricted. Even Captain Kai Qinghan is captured, showing just how far this case reaches. The next morning, Suning only learns what exploded overnight after he wakes up, despite being the one who set the whole chain in motion. Once he understands the follow-up to the stalking incident, he skips breakfast and heads straight for Maple Lane. The usually busy lane now looks half-frozen, with city guards at every Dayuan storefront and unfamiliar black armored guards patrolling between them. When Suning steps into the Maple Lane guard station, he finds it almost empty, with even the gate guards gone. Sitting at his desk, Suning finally feels how serious this case is, because the Source faction never treats magic faction traces lightly. He remembers that the black armored guards hunt nearby magic factions almost every month, but recruits like Campsite 3 have not been involved yet. That also makes him appreciate Chu Dayo even more, because the public announcement carefully hid Suning's name as the source of the case. Then Feng Xigua rushes in without even knocking, visibly shaken and desperate to confirm Suning is safe. Feng Xigua says black armored guards dragged him and the other city guards away in the middle of the night, questioned them until dawn, and only released some of them. He adds that some of his friends are still locked up in Campsite 2's confinement room, and the memory clearly still rattles him. Suning only nods, because anything tied to a magic faction would trigger exactly this kind of brutal sweep. Feng Xigua nervously says he also heard Lieutenant Chen and the others were investigated, then blurts out the question he really cares about. Is Suning involved too? Suning answers with a dry smile that if he were involved, he would not be sitting here right now. Kanyun County is sealed tight under Wei Changqing's order, and Yu Xinghe can only hide by a wall and stare at the guarded gate in despair. He realizes Duanihe abandoned him on purpose, taking everything and fleeing with the 7-line gates while leaving him behind as the scapegoat. Yu Xinghe hides from the black armored guards, keeps moving when house searches begin, and understands he has almost no chance of slipping out of the city alive. Cornered and furious, Yu Xinghe directs his hatred at Duanihe, Huijio, and especially Suning before disappearing into the alleys with murder on his mind. That night Suning returns to Campsite 3 and finds it mostly empty because the others are all busy with the fallout from the Dayuan case. With Tao Qingping absent and no assignment from ruined Maple Lane, Suning ends up alone with rare free time. Suning opens his martial arts panel and confirms he now has 6 energy after earlier upgrades and absorbing the swallowtail flower. He thinks about pushing Lightfeather Bow to the intermediate realm, but decides to save the energy because ranged combat is not useful for his current situation. Suning suddenly notices something outside the door, but he hides that reaction and calmly sits down to read by the candle. After reading for a while, Suning washes up, puts out the lamp, and lies down in the dark as if he has gone to sleep. Yu Xinghe slips to the door in silence, peers through the crack, and confirms the room looks still before starting the assassination. Driven by fear and hatred, Yu Xinghe quietly works the bolt open and prepares to rush in and kill Suning before he can react. The moment the door opens, Suning is already waiting under the moonlight and greets him, turning the trap around in an instant. Suning strikes first at close range, and before Yu Xinghe can mount a real counterattack, Suning finishes him with a fast, decisive follow-up. Yu Xinghe collapses dead at Suning's feet, ending the assassination the instant it truly begins. After checking the body, Suning is relieved his heightened senses saved him, though he also regrets losing the chance to question Yu Xinghe. He decides he made the right call anyway, because Yu Xinghe was an old inner enrichment fighter, and any hesitation could have turned into a deadly struggle. Still unsure whether anyone else from Dayuan might target him, Suning immediately calls the night patrol to handle the aftermath. The city guards are shaken to see a killer inside the camp, but Suning does not blame them and simply has them remove the body and clean the room before he goes back to sleep. 10 days later the county stabilizes, Kai Qinghan is removed and sent back for punishment, and Ning Fengwen takes over Campsite 1 under Wei Changqing. All Dayuan-linked shops are put under investigation and prepared for auction, with Wei Changqing personally watching the process to prevent another disaster. Maple Lane stays quiet and half-abandoned, Chen Ren and Pan Du are dismissed, and with Yu Xinghe dead and Duanihe gone, Suning realizes he no longer has to fear Dayuan's retaliation here. After enjoying the calmest stretch since entering the county, Suning returns from duty and learns Chu Dayo has finally called for him. Suning finds Chu Dayo worn out in appearance but clearly pleased after cleaning up the Dayuan affair and settling old problems. Chu Dayo reminds Suning of his earlier promise, but says full promotion to lieutenant must wait because Suning has not yet reached the Qi realm. Then Chu Dayo offers a compromise and says Suning can still become an acting lieutenant with the same authority and duties, just without the real title's pay. Suning wants to refuse because the burden rises without better benefits, but Chu Dayo cuts him off and insists his merits make him the obvious choice. With the decision already made, Suning accepts and asks whether his acting lieutenant post will be at the camp or at Maple Lane. Chu Dayo answers immediately. Suning's acting lieutenant assignment will be Maple Lane. Chu Dayo tells Suning that Maple Lane is now his responsibility, because he is the only one left there. To help him take control cleanly, Chu Dayo says he will send 5 newcomers under Suning instead of older guards with their own loyalties. Once Suning accepts, Chu Dayo shifts to martial arts and directly asks if his strength has improved again. When Chu Dayo asks whether he can win a yellow plate in 2 months, Suning calmly says he is 90% confident, which finally makes Chu Dayo laugh in satisfaction. Back in his room, Su Ning finds Tao Qingping home unusually early, already bent over the table writing. Tao Qingping explains that everyone has been away nearly 2 months, so the camp ordered them to write letters home tonight and send them out in the morning. Su Ning is surprised the black armored guards even handle family mail, but he decides to write since the chance is there. He writes carefully about his decent living conditions, deliberately hiding the assassination attempt so his family will not worry. At the end, Su Ning also adds a separate note for Guiyi, wanting to thank the man who helped him so much. After Tao Qingping brings envelopes, Su Ning seals his letter and hands it over for tomorrow's messenger. The next bright morning, Feng Xigua rushes toward Maple Lane half-dressed and half-awake after oversleeping. At the gate, the city guards greet him with an odd new title, Father Gua, and leave him completely confused. Then the guards tell him the real reason. Su Ning has just been appointed acting lieutenant of Maple Lane. The news hits Feng Xigua so hard he bolts inside laughing, thrilled that the man he backed really made it. The city guards watch him go in open jealousy, realizing Feng Xigua just climbed onto the right connection at exactly the right time. At the notice board, Feng Xigua sees Su Ning's appointment posted in the center, and the official proof makes his pride boil over. He hastily fixes his clothes and face before heading to Su Ning's room, trying to look proper in front of his newly promoted superior. Feng Xigua bows in hard with loud congratulations, so overjoyed that Su Ning almost feels like Feng Xigua is the one who got promoted. Su Ning explains that the former city guard head was tied to Qinren and had taken money from Yuxinghe's side, so that man was dismissed and put under investigation. Since acting lieutenant can now appoint staff, Su Ning gives that vacant city guard post directly to Feng Xigua. The promotion leaves Feng Xigua dizzy with joy, because from this point on he becomes the strongest local figure under Su Ning and the black armored guards. Su Ning immediately cools him down, warning him not to turn arrogant and to remember the lessons he already taught him. Feng Xigua sobers up fast, understanding that if he wants to stay useful, he has to stay humble and practical. When Feng Xigua asks if Su Ning wants to move into Qinren's old office, Su Ning refuses for now and says he will only take it after becoming a real lieutenant. Instead, Su Ning orders him to have the old office cleaned, then work with the new accountant to check Qinren's books and report everything back. After Feng Xigua leaves, Su Ning opens the window to the early spring air and quietly feels that he is truly taking over Maple Lane now. The next day, Chu Dao's 5 assigned guards arrive under Su Ning, and one surprise among them is his own roommate, Tao Qingping. Looking over the group, Su Ning notices Chu Dao balanced it on purpose, with Tao village men, Song village men, and county locals, but nobody from Tan village. Over the next few days, the reshaped Maple Lane station settles into an orderly routine under Su Ning's management. Soon after, the messenger returns from Tao village with replies and small gifts, and Su Ning receives 2 letters back home. One letter from Tao Yunchuan and Su Lian tells Su Ning to stay safe, obey his superiors, and carry himself properly, not knowing he has already been promoted. Su Lian also sends him a long spring coat she made herself, and the perfect fit makes the gift feel even warmer. The second letter is from Guiyi, joking proudly about having a brother in the black armored guards and hoping Su Ning climbs even higher so he can brag about it. When Su Ning opens Guiyi's box, he finds a wind jasmine fruit inside, a spirit medicine worth around 800 taels. The gift hits hard because Su Ning had refused this very medicine before leaving, yet Guiyi and Tao Yugang still found a way to put it in his hands. He absorbs the wind jasmine fruit for 8 energy units, pushing his stored total up to 14. Even with that much energy saved, Su Ning does not spend it on polishing old techniques, because now his real target is breaking his internal skill into the Qi realm. On another day, Su Ning and Tao Qingping eat by the roadside and head not back to camp, but toward the private residences near Maple Lane. Because the lieutenant residences are much closer to the station, Su Ning decides the modest house is good enough and moves in with Tao Qingping for convenience. With extra rooms still empty, Su Ning quietly starts thinking that one day his sister and brother-in-law could stay here too. While walking through the tight alleys around the house, the two spot a timid braided girl hurrying toward them in a thin coat. The girl speeds up and slips past them, and Tao Qingping keeps staring after her until Su Ning smacks the back of his head and calls him out. Pressed by Su Ning, Tao Qingping admits he already investigated her family, and knows she lives right behind their yard. He also admits she already has a sickly childhood sweetheart, and although her parents disapprove, the two of them are in love. Su Ning points out that Tao Qingping's status as a black armored guard should still give him a chance, but Tao Qingping says he will not force himself into someone else's heart. Time passes another month and a half, and while Kanyun County settles back into peace and Maple Lane recovers from the Dayuan mess, Campsite 3 grows tense. The reason is the quarterly assessment, which will be supervised in person by Wei Changqing and decide everyone's resources for the next 3 months. Almost everyone is nervous, but Su Ning is not, because he has already saved enough energy to make a major breakthrough before the test. By combining his saved 14 energy with 4 swallowtail flowers bought from his wages and subsidy money, Su Ning pushes his total to 26. He uses that stockpile to advance his internal skill into Mortal Realm 4th stage, the Qi Realm, and still has 1 energy point left afterward. The night before the assessment, Su Ning and Tao Qingping move back to Campsite 3 to stay close for the morning. Then Tao Qingyuan appears at Su Ning's door, calling for him after they have not seen each other in a long while. Su Ning immediately notices that Tao Qingyuan's bearing has become steadier, showing clear progress in the source breath bodybuilding tactic. At the same time, Tao Qingyuan feels Su Ning has changed even more, no longer just oppressive but hard to read altogether. After greeting Tao Qingping too, Tao Qingyuan gets to the point and asks which yellow plate holder Su Ning plans to challenge in tomorrow's assessment. On the night before the assessment, Tao Qingyuan asks who Su Ning plans to challenge, and Su Ning casually says it will probably be Tan Fengying. Tao Qingyuan warns that Tan Fengying has improved fast and is almost at the Qi realm, then suggests the weaker yellow plate holder Tan Chang instead. Su Ning only says he will decide tomorrow, because at his current level he no longer sees anyone in Campsite 3 as a real threat. That calm answer makes Tao Qingyuan wonder if Su Ning has grown even stronger again, despite only recently reaching inner enrichment. Tao Qingping cuts in to ask how everyone else in the village is doing, unable to hide his own nerves before the big day. Tao Qingyuan says everyone is anxious, so he has been joking around all evening to steady the village's mood. When he gets up to leave, Tao Qingyuan heads off to find Tao Jin because her condition has been off and he suspects she has hit a bottleneck. Before going, Tao Qingyuan praises Su Ning for becoming an acting lieutenant in less than 2 months, calling him Tao Village's biggest success. Su Ning brushes it off as luck from being chosen by Chu Dayo, and his humility reassures Tao Qingyuan that promotion has not changed him. The next morning, all the newcomers gather early at the school field, where 3 wooden arenas and practice weapons wait under a heavy silence. Wei Changqing arrives with Chu Dayo and a team of veteran black armored guards, making it clear the real evaluation is starting now. Chu Dayo repeats the rules and bluntly says talent means nothing if it has not turned into strength by the time a real fight comes. His words sting the plate holders who enjoyed better resources, but they also fire up the weaker recruits who still think they can climb. Chu Dayo adds the key challenge rules. Everyone may challenge upward once, failed challengers stay where they are, and anyone already challenged can refuse more unless no other target remains. With the rules set, Chu Dayo officially opens the assessment and orders the gray plates to draw first. In the silent crowd, Su Ning notices everyone is tight with nerves, and Tao Jin stands out at the back with both fists clenched and her face hard. The first lots are drawn, and Tao Qingping's name comes up first among the gray plate challengers. Tao Qingping is nervous but secretly pleased, because going first lets him choose from the full list of cyan plate targets. When the challengers are told to name their opponents, Tao Qingping immediately picks Tan Fenghe, the weakest cyan plate holder he prepared for in advance. Then Tan Fenglu shocks the field by choosing Su Ning instead of an easier cyan plate target. Su Ning does not flinch at all and simply walks toward the arena under everyone's stare. Tao Qingyuan quickly realizes this challenge is a setup, because Tan Fenglu is strong enough to take a cyan plate elsewhere yet wastes the chance just to test Su Ning for Tan Fengying. Su Ning sees the same silent coordination, but to him it changes nothing because he already knows the gap is too wide. Instead of being annoyed, Su Ning is quietly interested, because this will be his first real test fight after entering the Qi realm. From the high platform, Wei Changqing notices Su Ning for the first time and asks Chu Dayo if this favored newcomer can really hold his cyan plate. Chu Dayo answers with unusual confidence that Su Ning can do that and might even take a yellow plate, which catches Wei Changqing's attention. Even so, Wei Changqing remains detached, because a county like this rarely produces a young fighter who can truly impress someone from Yunying City. Meanwhile, the newcomers fix their eyes on Su Ning's arena, eager to see whether the famous acting lieutenant really lives up to the rumors. On the stage, Tan Fenglu introduces himself with a spear in hand, and Su Ning returns the formal salute. Tan Fenglu stays tense because he already knows Su Ning is dangerous, but he accepted this losing match after Tan Fengying promised extra spirit medicine and future support. Tan Fenglu attacks first with a sharp spear thrust, trying to force Su Ning onto the defensive. The instant the move starts, Su Ning judges that Tan Fenglu is strong for a cyan plate, but nowhere near enough to threaten him. Su Ning shifts aside at the last possible moment, and avoids the strike so cleanly that Tan Fenglu is instantly rattled. Before Tan Fenglu can recover, Su Ning closes the distance so fast that the long spear becomes a burden instead of an advantage. Tan Fenglu tries to jam him with an elbow, but Su Ning ignores the opening and answers with a bare fist instead of even drawing his knife. That one punch lands in Tan Fenglu's chest and blasts him clean out of the arena, ending the fight in a heartbeat. The whole field freezes, because the famous knife user just won with one dodge and one punch. Watching from the crowd, Tao Qingyuan is shaken into thinking Su Ning has to be at least at intermediate source breath bodybuilding level, or maybe already in the Qi realm. Tao Jin takes the result even harder, because Su Ning's strength is now undeniable just as her own progress has started to stall. As panic creeps in, Tao Jin bitterly feels that if she is not a genius, then she has nothing left to rely on. The assessment guard announces the obvious result. Su Ning keeps his cyan plate, and Tan Fenglu stays gray. When Tan Fenglu gets up, he realizes Su Ning held back on purpose and even placed the punch carefully to avoid serious injury. He goes straight back to Tan Fengying and warns him to be careful, because Su Ning is much stronger than expected. That warning leaves Tan Fengying stuck between pride and survival, because he knows Su Ning is almost certainly coming for his yellow plate next. He starts calculating a defensive trick. If some other cyan plate reaches him first, he can refuse later challenges and keep Su Ning away. But the idea tastes like retreat, and Tan Fengying knows dodging Su Ning would cost him face in Tan Village, at Campsite 3, and with Chu Dayo. Up on the platform, Su Ning's punch hits Chu Dayo just as hard in another way, because he can tell at a glance this power is beyond inner enrichment. Chu Dayo realizes Su Ning has already entered the Qi realm, a leap even he did not know about. For the first time today, even the aloof Wei Changqing sits upright and openly reacts to Su Ning's talent. Watching from the platform, Wei Changqing is genuinely struck that Su Ning jumped from Muscle Bone realm to the Qi realm in just 3 months. For a moment, Wei Changqing even thinks Su Ning might become the one sent onward to the Source faction. After Su Ning's match with Tan Fenglu, the Grey Plate challenges keep going, but nobody else can stir the crowd the way he did. Most challengers target people from other villages, and the plate balance barely shifts when the Grey Plate rounds finally end. Tao Village comes out almost even, though Tao Qingping is left frustrated after picking a weaker target and still failing to move up. Then the real pressure starts as the cyan plates prepare to challenge the yellow plates for the monthly Qinglu Dan reward. These fights immediately look sharper and more dangerous, because 3 months of resources and training have finally started to show. When Su Ning's name is finally drawn in the first round, everyone knows he is now fighting for a yellow plate. Because he was picked early, Su Ning will have to survive extra rounds later if he wants to keep that yellow plate qualification. Asked to name an opponent, Su Ning does not hesitate and points straight at Tan Fengying. Tan Fengying already expected this, because he had used Tan Fenglu to test Su Ning and now has to face the result himself. Once they face each other on the arena, Tan Fengying directly asks the question everyone is thinking: has Su Ning already reached the Qi realm? Su Ning answers honestly, and the truth lands heavily enough that Tan Fengying has to steady himself before fighting. Even knowing he is outmatched, Tan Fengying chooses to fight anyway, determined to prove his 3 months of work were not meaningless. Su Ning accepts, but instead of rushing for an easy win, he decides to use this match to test the force of his new internal energy. Tan Fengying attacks first with a full spear charge, and Su Ning meets him head-on instead of dodging. The moment Su Ning condenses qi into his palm and blade, the clash turns brutal, and one contact nearly knocks Tan Fengying out of the ring. Tan Fengying instantly feels the gap, because this is not just strength anymore but force driven through a Qi realm weapon strike. Su Ning is impressed too, realizing this twisting force is far deadlier than the plain physical power he used before. But before Su Ning can test anything further, Tan Fengying makes the practical choice and surrenders on the spot. Walking away from the stage, Tan Fengying accepts the hit to his pride and quietly decides to stop chasing reputation and focus only on martial arts. The examiner calls Su Ning's win, and the whole field falls into a heavy silence because everyone now knows the strongest newcomer in Campsite 3 is him. The assessment moves on, and Tao Qingyuan calmly keeps his yellow plate without much trouble. Tao Jin keeps hers too, but unlike Tao Qingyuan, she looks tense and hesitant the entire time. That weak showing paints a target on her back, and the second round opens with Song Qingwei immediately challenging Tao Jin. As soon as they start, Su Ning can see the real problem is not Tao Jin's strength but her chaotic state of mind. Tao Jin fights like she needs a quick victory to save face, throwing herself forward too aggressively instead of settling into the match. Song Qingwei reads that panic immediately, and keeps defending, waiting for Tao Jin to make the mistakes herself. From the sidelines, both Su Ning and Tao Qingyuan realize the same ugly truth: if this keeps going, Tao Jin is going to lose. Inside her own head, Tao Jin spirals, terrified that one loss will turn her from village genius into a joke living off her grandfather's name. That fear wrecks her technique, and another opening finally appears. Song Qingwei punishes it cleanly, smashing Tao Jin's wrist and then driving her staff into Tao Jin's abdomen to knock her out of the arena. Song Village erupts in cheers, while the Tao Village side goes dead quiet around Tao Jin's public defeat. Tao Jin gets back up in a daze, bruised and disheveled, barely seeming to notice her own injuries. Tao Qingyuan rushes over to help, but Tao Jin angrily shakes him off and walks away through the staring crowd. She passes Su Ning without a word, and even he decides this is not a moment where he has the right to stop her. Left behind, Tao Qingyuan can only hope this humiliation teaches Tao Jin to practice martial arts for herself instead of for everyone's approval. From the platform, Wei Changqing coldly notes that some talented newcomers still have dangerously fragile minds. Chu Dayo explains that Tao Jin is Tao Jingxing's granddaughter, raised with praise and expectations, and that burden just crushed her in public. That hits a personal nerve for Wei Changqing, who murmurs that family can be both honor and burden. Another hour passes, the assessment ends, and Tao Village finishes with 2 new yellow plate holders, Su Ning and Tao Qingyuan. As the crowd starts to break apart, Chu Dayo calls Su Ning over in full view of everyone else. Standing before Chu Dayo and Wei Changqing, Su Ning becomes the clear focus of the entire field's envy and attention. Chu Dayo jokes about Su Ning's wild progress, asking if he has been doing anything besides practicing at the station. Su Ning answers modestly, saying he still handled his duties and only got lucky with a few breakthroughs. Wei Chongqing takes over and tells Su Ning that even compared with the young talents of Yuning City, he is not far behind. Then he goes even further and says that if Su Ning keeps this pace, the Source faction's spot should belong to him. Before Su Ning can fully process that, Wei Chongqing adds another reward. Reaching the Qi realm now makes him eligible for the Maple Lane lieutenant position. And because the month is ending right now, Wei Chongqing tells Chu Dayo to hand Su Ning this month's lieutenant prize immediately. Su Ning is left staring at them, suddenly realizing that his rise has already unlocked benefits he did not even know existed. After Wei Chongqing leaves, Su Ning stays behind with Chu Dayo and immediately asks what reward comes with his new lieutenant rank. Chu Dayo explains that lieutenants do not just get salary now, they also receive training resources because official duties cut into cultivation time. The real reward is 3 Qi Dawn every month, a special benefit reserved for Black Armored Guards officers in the Qi realm. When Su Ning hears the name for the first time, Chu Dayo adds that these pills are refined in Yuning City by a commissioned alchemy master and are hard to get in Kanyan County. Chu Dayo names the price plainly. 1 Qi Dan is only 500 taels in Yuning City, but in Kanyan County even 1,000 taels might not buy one. That price makes Su Ning's mind race, because for him the pill's value could become more spirit medicine if he were allowed to sell it. Chu Dayo catches that thought at once, and Su Ning honestly asks whether selling the pills for better suited resources would be smarter for some fighters. Chu Dayo admits the logic is real, but he shuts the idea down immediately. Selling Qi Dawn is strictly forbidden inside the Black Armored Guards. He explains the reason bluntly. Once pills become cash, some officers stop training and waste the reward on comfort or other selfish uses. The warning gets heavier when Chu Dayo says anyone caught doing it can be stripped of Black Armored Guard status and punished internally. Su Ning has to give up the resale idea, but the monthly reward still feels like a real gain, so he follows Chu Dayo to collect the pills. At the resource room, Su Ning receives a stamped wooden box holding his 3 Qi Dawn, officially sealed like controlled military property. Because it is assessment day, Su Ning has the day off from Maple Lane, and instead of going out with Tao Qingping and the others, he heads home to inspect the pills in private. Near home, Su Ning almost collides with the young woman Tao Qingping mentioned before, and she panics the instant she recognizes his Black Armored Guard's uniform. Su Ning notices bruises on her face and neck and stops her to ask what happened, because the injuries clearly do not look like an accident. The girl lies awkwardly that she just fell, too ashamed or afraid to admit someone beat her. Su Ning knows she is hiding the truth, but since she refuses help directly, he only tells her to seek the city guards if she needs protection. After she hurries off, Su Ning returns to his quiet house and feels how empty it is without his sister's family there. That emptiness pushes a practical thought into place. He should bring Su Lian and her family over from Tao village soon. The moment he gets to his room, Su Ning opens the sealed box and sees 3 white Qi Dawn sitting neatly inside with a faint medicinal fragrance. The Black Armored Guards logo carved into each pill makes the anti-resale rule feel even stricter, because a stolen or sold pill would be easy to trace. When Su Ning touches the first pill, the panel confirms what he really wanted to know. Each Qi Dan contains 5 units of energy. That result makes him genuinely happy, because by his standards 500 taels for 5 energy is a solid trade. He absorbs all 3 Qi Dawn without hesitation, turning the monthly reward straight into usable power. After the absorption finishes, Su Ning's available energy jumps from 1 to 16, and the value of joining the Black Armored Guards feels more obvious than ever. Looking at that new reserve, Su Ning realizes life in the Black Armored Guards gives him a much steadier path to resources than roaming the mountains as a village hunter. With regular pay, allowances, and now lieutenant resources, he can finally stop pouring every tael into spirit medicine and start improving his quality of life too. But once the excitement settles, Su Ning faces a new choice: keep all 16 energy for a future realm breakthrough, or spend it now to perfect one of his external skills. He remembers Chu Dayo's earlier advice that perfection in an external skill matters most in the lower and middle mortal realms, where it can kill stronger foes or at least keep you alive. The numbers make the decision easier, because reaching the next internal realm would cost 45 energy, while perfecting an external skill only costs 12 for an immediate jump in combat value. In the end, curiosity and efficiency win, and Su Ning chooses to perfect the Source Breath bodybuilding tactic first instead of the knife art. He confirms the 12 energy upgrade, trusting that the body tempering technique hides more depth than it first appears to. The upgrade reshapes his body from the inside out, making his bones harder, muscles tighter, and fascia tougher until his raw physical strength nearly doubles again. Even with that surge of strength, Su Ning frowns at first because perfection feels strangely underwhelming compared with what he expected. The panel confirms the technique really has reached perfection and that his available energy has dropped to 4, so the missing payoff must be hidden in how the skill works now. When he activates the technique again, the real change finally appears. Su Ning's skin darkens slightly and hardens across the surface of his body. To make sure he is not imagining it, Su Ning cuts his bare skin once without the technique active and draws real blood. Then he hardens his skin and repeats the same slash with the same force, only for the blade to leave a pale mark that fades instead of opening a wound. That test finally gives Su Ning the answer he wanted. Perfection in this technique means a major jump in defense, not just more raw strength. He keeps experimenting with rougher tests like boiling water and spikes, pushing the new hardened skin until he can judge its limits. By the end, Su Ning concludes that his defense has risen by a full tier, which means he can fight much more aggressively without dying for one mistake. He also discovers the catch: hardened skin drains stamina over time, especially when he spreads it over a larger area. That drawback becomes manageable once he realizes he can control exactly which body parts to harden for each situation. After the novelty wears off, Su Ning cleans up the remains of the pills and heads out to eat, with his new defense already folded into his plans. Several days later, the story shifts outside Kanyan County, where a line of donkey carts loaded with herbs finally rolls in through the city gate. At the front cart, Gui Yi and Tao Yungang look on as they enter. Carrying on the transport business, Tao Yungang had to pause after the earlier bandit trouble. A small head suddenly pops up from behind the herb crates, and Tao Tao stares at the crowded county city with pure, unfiltered amazement. Su Lian flicks Tao Tao's forehead to quiet her down, revealing that mother and daughter have been riding hidden among the cargo the whole way. Gui Yi grins and proudly reminds Tao Tao that he was telling the truth about the county city being packed with people and tasty food. Su Lian thanks Tao Yungang for bringing them in, because without his help she and Tao Tao would not have made this move to the city so easily. Tao Yungang waves it off, because times are different now and the Tao village caravans are far safer with the black armored guards connection behind them. He had refused requests like this in the past when bandits still posed a real threat, but now no sensible raider wants to provoke the Tao village's new backing. To be extra safe, Tao Yungang even spent real money to hire a Mortal Realm 4th stage escort for the trip. Once they settle their things in the city, Tao Yungang promises he will personally take Su Lian and Tao Tao to find Su Ning. Su Lian answers with quiet relief, grateful that the last step of coming to the city will lead straight to her brother. And Tao Tao can barely contain herself, tugging her pigtails and blurting out that she can finally see Uncle Su Ning again. After settling into town, Gui Yi brings Su Lian and little Tao Tao to Maple Lane to find Su Ning at his guard post. Su Lian gets nervous that showing up unannounced might disturb Su Ning's work, so Gui Yi promises they will only visit if it is convenient. They reach Maple Lane but still do not know exactly where the guard station is, and Tao Tao is visibly worn out from the trip. A patrol of city guards comes by, and Su Lian instinctively pulls Gui Yi back because the hard-faced leader looks anything but friendly. Gui Yi steadies her by saying Su Ning outranks ordinary city guards now, and that confidence makes him walk over with his back a little straighter than before. Feng Xigua greets Gui Yi coldly at first, and Gui Yi has to force a polite smile before asking where the Maple Lane guard station is. The mood snaps the instant Gui Yi says they are here to find Su Ning. When Feng Xigua quietly asks why they want Master Su, Gui Yi realizes Su Ning's name carries real weight here. Gui Yi answers that it is a family visit and points out Su Lian and Tao Tao, naming them as Su Ning's sister and niece. Feng Xigua immediately apologizes, introduces himself as Su Ning's deputy, and treats the three of them like honored guests. Su Lian awkwardly calls him master, but Feng Xigua waves that off and even tells them to call him Old Feng because that is what Su Ning says. He dismisses the rest of the patrol on the spot and personally escorts them to the station, switching from strict commander to cheerful guide in one breath. As they walk, Feng Xigua reassures them that Su Ning is free enough to see them because he usually spends his time shut up in his room practicing martial arts. Gui Yi freezes on one word when Feng Xigua casually calls Su Ning Lieutenant Su. Feng Xigua explains that Su Ning was promoted just a few days ago, and the news hits Gui Yi and Su Lian like a shock. At the guard station, Feng Xigua hurries them straight towards Su Ning's study. Meanwhile, Su Ning is alone in his study reading a thick history book about the black armored guards and Kanyan County to fill in the gaps in what he knows. He gets up to stretch, looks out at the budding trees, and quietly thinks that spring is here and he should go home in a few days. The sound of approaching footsteps pulls him back, and the first small figure he recognizes is Tao Tao hurrying into the courtyard. Su Ning rushes to open the door, and Tao Tao instantly throws herself into his arms with a bright little cry of uncle. He lifts Tao Tao up and laughs while she grabs at his black armored belt, making the reunion feel immediate and warm. Only after hugging Tao Tao does Su Ning turn to ask Su Lian and Gui Yi why they came all the way to the city. Gui Yi quickly explains that his uncle escorted a caravan into town, brought Su Lian and Tao Tao with him, and hired a Qi realm expert so the road was safe. Su Ning thanks Gui Yi and Tao Yungang, then suddenly notices one person missing and asks where his brother-in-law Tao Yunchuan is. Su Lian admits Tao Yunchuan wanted to come, but his old back injury flared up again and left him barely able to move. She explains that she still came because the weather was warming, Su Ning needed spring clothes and food from home, and Tao Tao had been saying she missed him. Hearing that leaves Su Ning both guilty and restless, and he starts thinking seriously about finding a way to treat Tao Yunchuan's long-standing injuries. Now that he is a lieutenant with better access to people and resources, Su Ning resolves to ask Chu Dayo about spirit medicine or Dan medicine for Tao Yunchuan. Feng Xigua breaks the silence by offering to arrange lodging, but Su Ning immediately says his sister and niece will stay with him in his spare room. Su Ning also invites Gui Yi to stay, but Guiyi refuses because he still has to help his uncle with business in the city. Even so, Suning asks Guiyi to call him when Tao Yungang hosts the county shopkeepers, because he wants to help repay the favors that family has shown him. They part for the day, and Suning takes Su Lian and Tao Tao through the market to buy fresh vegetables before bringing them back to his place. That night, Guiyi and Tao Qingping join them for a simple home-cooked dinner, and the familiar meal feels especially good after so long in the city. The only one not impressed is Tao Tao, because Guiyi had promised her a grand restaurant meal before the trip. Suning fixes that the next day by using his leave to show Su Lian and Tao Tao around Kanyan County. He spoils Tao Tao with toys, treats, and fancy restaurant food until her earlier disappointment is completely gone. Su Lian scolds Suning for spending so freely, but once she hears how much he earns now, even she has no real answer to that. A few days later, Tao Yunggang's carriage is finally ready to head back, and Suning personally escorts them out of the city despite not wanting the visit to end. Before they leave, Suning presses a 100-tael note into Su Lian's hands so she will have money to take home. Su Lian hesitates, but in the end she accepts it. Guiyi and Tao Yungang then offer Suning a wooden box of spirit medicine in return, clearly wanting to repay him too. Suning knows what is inside without opening it, and refuses on the spot, saying he has already received more than enough help from them. Tao Yungang explains that Suning's appearance at dinner changed how every shopkeeper treated him and opened new business routes the very next day. Even after hearing that, Suning still refuses, so the two finally stop pressing the gift on him and take it back. The donkey carriage starts rolling, and Tao Tao leans out to keep shouting goodbye to her uncle. Suning stands there waving back until the carriage disappears from sight, and the road feels strangely empty once it is gone. He returns to the guard station feeling hollow after the goodbye and tries to settle himself by reading the latest internal county reports. One headline stops him cold because it mentions the magic faction, the same threat he has been watching since the Dayuan Trading Company incident. The report says an ordinary shop assistant in Lushui Lane somehow learned a magic technique but was so frightened at first that he did not dare practice it. Everything changed after the shop got a new owner who beat and humiliated him, pushing that fear into simmering resentment. The assistant secretly cultivated the magic technique, and, in less than half a year, climbed all the way to the inner enrichment realm. When the shopkeeper beat him again 3 days ago, the assistant finally decided to strike back that very night. He only meant to punish the man, but the magic technique had already twisted his mind, and the revenge spiraled into a full family massacre. He was captured while fleeing, but even that did not lead anywhere because he suddenly died during the final interrogation. By the end of the report, the case is closed with almost no answers, leaving Su Ning with one more ugly reminder that the magic faction is still moving in the dark. After reading the internal report, Su Ning realizes the worst part is not one mad shop assistant, but the chance that more hidden magic warriors are already inside Kanyan County. He pieces together that if one ordinary clerk could secretly learn a magic technique for half a year, others could be hiding the same way without anyone noticing. Su Ning assumes the higher ranks like Wei Changqing have already seen this danger too, and that an investigation may soon sweep from Lushui Lane to Maple Lane. What unsettles him most is the speed. That magic technique pushed a complete beginner into inner enrichment in just half a year. He understands why desperate warriors fall for that bait, because the shortcut is brutally tempting when normal progress feels too slow. But the report also makes the cost clear. Once a magic user turns resentful and activates the technique, their mind starts slipping out of control. To Su Ning, that settles it. Every magic technique harms someone, whether it ruins the user or feeds on other people, so the source faction has no choice but to wipe it out. He decides to warn the whole guard station in a meeting, because everyone under him needs to start treating magic faction signs as an immediate threat. A few quiet days pass, and while the new recruits go home to their families, Tao Jin stays behind in campsite 3 instead of facing her village after losing her yellow plate. Left alone with her frustration, Tao Jin forces her internal energy again and again, trying to break into the Qi realm and getting nowhere. When the morning ends with no progress at all, she slams her fist into the wall in helpless anger and leaves her knuckles red. Knowing her state is getting worse, Tao Jin changes clothes and wanders out to the riverside at lunch, trying to breathe with her head still in a fog. Then a man in a hat approaches along the riverbank, and just as Tao Jin sidesteps to avoid him, he brushes close and slips something onto her before hurrying away. Tao Jin reaches to her waist and pulls out a palm-sized yellow booklet she has never seen before. The moment she opens it and sees the title Shadow Braith Blood Passage, her blood runs cold because she instantly recognizes it as a magic technique. She whips around to find the man in the hat, but he is already gone, leaving her sweating and badly shaken. Her first instinct is the right one. Get back to camp immediately and hand the forbidden manual straight to Captain Chu. On the way back, her nerves spiral so badly that every passerby starts looking like a possible magic faction accomplice. Inside her head, one voice keeps warning her that magic techniques destroy lives and will ruin her if she touches them. But even as she nears Chu Daio's study, another voice pushes back and tempts her with the thought that maybe this technique is not what it seems. Before she can decide, Chu Daio comes out and catches Tao Jin standing there pale and nervous. When Chu Daio casually asks why she did not go home, Tao Jin scrambles to say she stayed behind to train. The chance to hand over the booklet is right there, but Tao Jin still cannot do it because the desperate part of her has not let go. Chu Dayo mistakes her tension for cultivation stress and gives her simple advice instead: steady your mind, stop forcing it, and your talent will carry you forward. Tao Jin thanks him and retreats to the dining hall excuse, escaping the moment without ever revealing the magic technique. After she leaves, Chu Dayo remembers that she came from the direction of his study for no clear reason, and her odd behavior makes him narrow his eyes in suspicion. Back in her room, Tao Jin checks the hallway, shuts the door, and locks herself in with the dangerous booklet. She sets Shadow-Breathed Blood Passage on the table, opens it again, and confirms there is no doubt now that it is truly a magic technique. That ugly truth also forces her to admit something about herself. When she faced Chu Dayo, the voice she obeyed was her own hunger to advance faster. The temptation hits hard enough that she recoils, rushes to splash cold water on her face, and tries to force herself calm. Once she steadies herself, Tao Jin reminds herself that using a magic technique would put her on a road with no return. The manual says cultivation needs blood as a resource, and even if it might be animal blood, Tao Jin suspects the truth is much darker. Her conscience hardens at the idea of human blood, and she flatly tells herself she cannot become that kind of person. Even the safer excuse falls apart, because if she learns the technique at all, the man in the hat will own her choices from then on. That makes the whole thing feel like a targeted trap, and Tao Jin starts wondering whether the magic faction is baiting every recruit who recently dropped in rank. She has no proof and no safe way to ask around, so she settles on one rule for now: do not practice it. But Tao Jin still cannot let it go, and instead of turning away, she spends the next hour reading the manual over and over until every line is burned into memory. Only after memorizing it does she light the booklet on fire and watch the forbidden pages curl into ash. Still not satisfied, she mixes the ashes with water and dumps the sludge away, trying to erase every trace of what reached her room. With the evidence gone, Tao Jin tells herself she should be safe as long as she never practices it, though the fear of being watched still clings to her. So she buries the panic the only way she can and returns to ordinary chi training as if nothing happened. Some days later, the recruits who went home come back, and Tao Qingping arrives at Su Ning's yard carrying bags of oranges from Tao village. Su Ning laughs at hauling fruit all the way from the village, but Tao Qingping insists homegrown oranges are different. Then Tao Qingping cheerfully tells him he missed a hero's welcome, because news of Su Ning's promotion had already spread through Tao village and even the clan elders were praising him. The next surprise is worse for Su Ning. Matchmakers have apparently been visiting his home every day trying to marry daughters into his future. Su Ning immediately asks whether his sister agreed to anything, and only relaxes when Tao Qingping says she refused to decide without him. Tao Qingping adds one last jab that Gui passed along. Tao apparently wants an auntie already, which leaves Su Ning speechless. When Tao Qingping asks if he really has no plans to start a family yet, Su Ning calmly says no, not for now. Su Ning flips the topic back to the backyard girl Tao Qingping liked, and the mood drops at once when Tao Qingping says the neighbors told him she is already married. She did not end up with her childhood sweetheart either, but was forced by her family to marry an older leather goods shopkeeper instead. Tao Qingping regrets not sending a matchmaker in time, and Su Ning silently remembers the girl's old injuries and realizes her family may have been hurting her all along. There is nothing useful either man can say after that, and the courtyard falls into an uneasy silence. That silence breaks under heavy pounding at the courtyard gate, followed by a city guard urgently calling for Master Lieutenant Su Ning. Su Ning recognizes the voice as one of Feng Xigua's Maple Lane men and opens the door to find the guard drenched in sweat from running. The messenger blurts out that there has been a murder case, serious enough that he came straight to Su Ning. Then the guard lowers his voice and adds the detail that changes everything. The case may involve the magic faction. The moment Su Ning hears that, all casual talk ends, and he orders the guard to take him there at once. Su Ning rushes in with bad news. There has been a murder in Maple Lane, and the case may involve the magic faction. The moment he hears magic faction, Tao Qingping drops his exhaustion and moves with Su Ning at once. On the way, the messenger says the killing happened at Fengra Leather Store, and Tao Qingping freezes because that is where Nie Xiaowei was married off. Realizing Nie Xiaowei may be tied to the case, Su Ning urges them to move even faster. They reach Fengra Leather Store and find the whole place sealed off by city guards while bystanders are kept away. Inside, Feng Xigua meets them and quickly leads them upstairs before explaining anything. On the residential third floor, the workers are all huddled together in fear while the murder room sits ahead. When they enter, Tao Qingping first checks the dead men with visible dread, clearly afraid Nie Xiaowei might be one of them. Seeing that only the two men are dead, Tao Qingping lets out a brief, guilty-looking relief. Feng Xigua identifies the victims as shopkeeper Yao of the leather store and Xing Weiming of Ruinyu Medicinal Materials shop. He explains that the two old friends drank together last night, and shopkeeper Yao brought Xing back here instead of going home. Because shopkeeper Yao already had a bad relationship with his wife, he often slept on the third floor of the shop instead. After returning drunk, shopkeeper Yao had a worker fetch his new mistress, Nie Xiaowei. According to the workers, Nie Xiaowei resisted sharing the room with both men, but Yao beat and dragged her inside anyway. The rest of the shop was ordered to stay away, so no one went upstairs until the next afternoon when the silence became suspicious. When a worker finally opened the room, the two men were already dead. Tao Qingping erupts in anger at what Nie Xiaowei was put through and slams the door frame hard enough to shake it. Suning forces the case back on track and asks the key question: where is Nie Xiaowei now? Feng Xigua says Nie Xiaowei vanished after the killings, which makes her the biggest suspect on the spot. Suning presses further and asks why this is being treated as a magic faction case instead of an ordinary double murder. A closer look at the wound shows the victim's blood was deliberately taken, a method often tied to magic cultivation. That pattern hits Suning immediately because blood harvesting is one of the most common signs of magic techniques. When Feng Xigua bluntly says Nie Xiaowei is probably a magic warrior, Tao Qingping goes cold instead of arguing. Suning immediately turns the conclusion into action and says the next step is simple: find and arrest Nie Xiaowei. Feng Xigua warns that if Nie Xiaowei really knows magic martial arts, ordinary city guards may not be enough to capture her. Suning answers by mobilizing the whole station, calling for support from other guard posts, and widening the search immediately. The new case also rattles Suning because a second local magic suspect so soon could mean a larger hidden force is spreading through Kanyan County. Before leaving, Suning checks whether anyone has already gone to Nie Xiaowei's family home. When he hears the family house is already being checked, Suning decides to go there himself with Tao Qingping and also look into her childhood sweetheart. Elsewhere in Kanyan County, the urgent report reaches Wei Chongqing, and the second suspected magic faction case puts him in a dark mood. Wei Chongqing treats the pattern as a real infiltration warning and orders a joint search plus tighter watch at the city gates. Suning and Tao Qingping arrive at Nie Xiaowei's shabby family courtyard and find it already packed with city guards. Inside, Nie Xiaowei's parents and younger brother are so terrified by the accusation that they can barely stand. The lead guard reports that the family denied knowing anything, and no evidence linked to the magic faction was found in the house. Suning does not take that at face value and asks whether the family might still be lying. The moment the guard mentions more interrogation, Nie Xiaowei's adoptive mother bursts into tears and desperately disowns her. A city guard quietly explains that Nie Xiaowei is not their biological daughter, which makes the mother's cruelty make ugly sense. Tao Qingping snaps and warns the woman to watch her mouth, his anger flaring at how Nie Xiaowei was treated even at home. Suning quietly reins Tao Qingping in because showing too much personal feeling around a magic suspect could create trouble of its own. Suning asks whether Nie Xiaowei contacted them or came back after last night, but the whole family insists she never did. The mother finally gives up Nie Xiaowei's old connection and admits her childhood sweetheart is a man named Yang Yicheng who lives right across the street. Suning and Tao Qingping cross over immediately, shifting the investigation from the family to Yang Yicheng. A hard knock brings out Yang Yicheng's haggard mother, who is frightened but not surprised to see the guards. Yang Yicheng comes out looking pale and frail, and Suning notices his expression shift the instant he sees black armored guards. When Suning asks about Nie Xiaowei, Yang Yicheng first tries to cut himself loose by coldly calling her another man's mistress. Suning immediately hears the resentment hiding under that answer and warns him to stop playing games. Pressed harder, Yang Yicheng admits they were childhood sweethearts, but claims they cut contact because her family looked down on him. Suning does not buy the story and bluntly threatens to kill him as a magic faction accomplice if he lies again. A city guard backs Suning up by warning that anyone hiding things in a magic faction case can be treated as an accomplice. His mother panics and begs him to cooperate, making the pressure in the courtyard even worse. Under that pressure, Yang Yicheng says the last time he saw Nie Xiaowei was 2 months ago because his health kept him indoors. Suning instantly calls that answer a lie. To break his composure, Suning presses force into Yang Yicheng's shoulder, and the frail young man nearly collapses from the sudden pain. Without hesitation, Suning orders the guards to take Yang Yicheng away as a magic faction accomplice to be executed. The guards obey, but even they look baffled because Yang Yicheng's lie was not obvious to them. Yang Yicheng's mother drops to her knees to beg for mercy, but the arrest goes ahead anyway. Even while being taken away, Yang Yicheng says nothing and hardens into a strangely determined silence. Tao Qingping finally challenges Suning, unable to understand whether Yang Yicheng is really tied to the magic faction. Suning answers bluntly that Yang Yicheng is not confirmed as an accomplice, but he is definitely lying. He ends on one clear conclusion: Yang Yicheng definitely saw Nie Xiaowei more recently than 2 months ago. As Yang Yicheng is escorted away, Tao Qingping still cannot understand how Suning became so certain he was hiding something. Instead of answering directly, Suning tells Tao Qingping to look at Yang Yicheng's wrist. Tao Qingping finally notices the yellow bracelet tied around Yang Yicheng's wrist, and the small detail hits him at once. Because he used to steal glances at Nie Xiaowei in the alleys, Tao Qingping remembers that exact bracelet from her wrist. Suning confirms it without hesitation. That bracelet belonged to Nie Xiaowei. He explains why he can be so precise. The last time he saw Nie Xiaowei hiding the marks on her neck, he caught a clear look at the bracelet on her wrist. With his inner enrichment realm senses, Suning had noticed even the tiny cut in the yellow string, and Yang Yicheng's bracelet matches it exactly. That detail makes the link hard to dismiss, because men in Kanyan County almost never wear this kind of feminine ornament. So Suning draws the real conclusion: Nie Xiaowei personally gave Yang Yicheng the bracelet, and that gift points to a special relationship between them. Su Ning adds one more hard fact. Half a month ago, Nie Xiaowei was still wearing it herself. That means the handoff was recent, somewhere in the last 2 weeks, and Su Ning suspects it may even have happened last night. Tao Qingping follows the logic and grimly guesses that after the killing, Nie Xiaowei may have given Yang Yicheng the bracelet as a farewell before running. Su Ning does not overstate it, but he agrees the guess is reasonable enough to treat seriously. Even with the clue in front of him, Tao Qingping still feels uneasy, because accusing Yang Yicheng as a magic faction accomplice seems unfair if he may be innocent. He quickly softens his tone and makes clear he is not openly challenging Su Ning's authority as Maple Lane's lieutenant. Then Su Ning finally lays out the truth. Under heavy interrogation, Yang Yicheng felt like nothing more than an ordinary man. But because the black armored guards treat anything tied to the magic faction with extreme severity, Su Ning can still lawfully hold him as a suspected accomplice. And Su Ning coolly reveals the harshest part was theater. When he threatened to kill Yang Yicheng, he was putting on an act to break pressure and force progress in the case. Su Ning tells Tao Qingping this execution is only a trap. If Nie Xiaowei is still hiding in Kanyan County, she should rush out to save Yang Yicheng. Tao Qingping catches the real plan at once and bluntly asks if Yang Yicheng is being used as bait. He pushes the hard question further, asking what happens if Nie Xiaowei never appears and whether they are really going through with the execution tomorrow. Su Ning shuts that down immediately and makes his boundary clear. If Nie Xiaowei does not show, they will only detain Yang Yicheng for hiding his connection to her and interrogate him lawfully. That answer reassures Tao Qingping, and he agrees to spread the execution notice through Maple Lane so the rumor reaches Nie Xiaowei. As he leaves, Tao Qingping looks up at the sky and sighs, weighed down by the fact that he may have to hunt the girl he once liked. That night, execution notices go up across Maple Lane, turning Su Ning's trap into public gossip. By early morning, the whole district is buzzing that Yang Yicheng, accused of ties to the magic faction, will be executed at Kaishika. At noon, the spectacle draws a crowd from Maple Lane and even other districts, all packing into Kaishiku to watch what they think will be a real execution. City guards lock down the execution grounds first, making the whole scene look official enough to fool anyone watching from hiding. Su Ning also brings the full Maple Lane team, standing at the front with Tao Qingping at his side and 4 black armored guards lined up behind them. When the ground is ready, Su Ning gives the order to bring Yang Yicheng out. The man who answers is Songwei, one of Chu Daio's new subordinates assigned under Su Ning, and he moves without hesitation. The station's new men follow Su Ning so smoothly because he is young but steady, keeps to principles, and backs his authority with frightening talent. At just 18 and already in the Qi realm, Su Ning feels untouchably strong to the newer guards, which is why this small Maple Lane post runs in such tight order under him. After Songwei signals the escort, the city guards finally bring Yang Yicheng up onto the stage. Yang Yicheng looks pale and weak as he walks, but he still does not break down in front of the soldiers, the execution platform, and the staring crowd. He spent the night locked up alone without torture, and in that long silence he had already turned his whole life over in his mind. For a man who had always suffered because of his weak body, the one bright part of his life now feels like it is being dragged to the scaffold with him. Before coming out, Yang Yicheng removed the yellow bracelet and now grips it tightly in his hand like the last proof of that fragile happiness. He scans the packed crowd from the execution platform, desperately looking for Nie Xiaowei and finding only strangers. And when he still cannot find her, Yang Yicheng silently begs Nie Xiaowei not to come at all. At the execution ground, Yang Yicheng's last wish hangs in the air while Su Ning ignores the condemned man and watches the crowd instead. Su Ning is certain Nie Xiaowei should be hiding among the onlookers, because the search at Yang Yicheng's house turned up a blood-stained 500-tael note that clearly did not belong to his family. He pieces it together fast. Nie Xiaowei probably handed over that money after the murders, trying to make sure the sickly Yang Yicheng could still afford his medicine. But as the crowd stays still, Su Ning quietly realizes she still has not stepped out. So Su Ning gives the signal, and the executioner raises the blade high to push the trap to its final edge. Yang Yicheng shuts his eyes under the hanging blade, caught somewhere between despair and relief. Right before the strike can fall, a woman's voice cuts through the square and stops everything. Nie Xiaowei finally walks out of the crowd in black clothes, with messy hair and bloodshot eyes, and all eyes snap toward her. She glances at Yang Yicheng once, then heads straight for Su Ning, making it obvious why she came. The executioner stops at once, because the whole execution was only a show to lure her out in the first place. Standing in front of Su Ning, Nie Xiaowei calmly takes the blame onto herself and says Yang Yicheng has nothing to do with the magic faction because she is the magic faction warrior. For Su Ning, the confession is no surprise, but her sudden courage is, because this is nothing like the timid girl who used to avoid even meeting his eyes. Tao Qingping watches her in silence, shaken by the fact that the frightened little girl he knew is gone. The square erupts in whispers as the townspeople recoil at the words magic faction warrior and start glaring at her. With armed guards around and Nie Xiaowei's identity now public, Su Ning moves straight to arrest and orders Songwei to shackle her and bring her back to the guard's station. Songwei takes the cuffs from a city guard and approaches carefully, clearly nervous because this is his first time facing a real magic faction warrior. Before he can lock the cuffs on, Nia Xiaowei steps back and asks Su Ning for one last chance to speak with Yang Yicheng. Song Wei pauses for Su Ning's call, and Su Ning quietly agrees. Since Nia Xiaowei has turned herself in on her own, she walks toward the execution stage knowing she will not be running again. She stops before Su Ning, bows, and quietly thanks him before taking the last few steps toward Yang Yicheng. On the stage, Yang Yicheng rises in chains and stares at her, realizing she really came. Nia Xiaowei reaches up and gently touches Yang Yicheng's cheek, turning the execution stage into a painfully quiet farewell. Even now, Yang Yicheng leans close and begs her to run. Nia Xiaowei just smiles and shakes her head, because she has already decided this is where she stops running. Yang Yicheng suddenly breaks down and shouts to Su Ning that he is the real magic faction warrior, trying to drag all the blame onto himself. The executioner kicks his leg out from under him, but Yang Yicheng keeps yelling for Nia Xiaowei to be spared. As Su Ning starts walking up with his knife behind his back, Yang Yicheng keeps screaming for death like a man who has run out of anything else to offer. Seeing Su Ning close in with a blade, Nia Xiaowei panics for the first time and throws herself in front of Yang Yicheng. She tries to confess again, but Su Ning ignores the words and suddenly draws in a blur. Nia Xiaowei lifts her arm to block him, only to realize the slash was never aimed at her. With a sharp clink, Su Ning knocks aside two metal-throwing knives and exposes the real attack coming from offstage. Nia Xiaowei instantly understands the truth. Someone came here to kill her before she could talk. Su Ning looks up at the nearby roof, pleased that the trap baited out more than just Nia Xiaowei. He stomps off the ground with terrifying force and launches himself straight onto the rooftops. On the roof ahead, Su Ning spots a masked assassin and immediately reads the man's purpose: silence Nia Xiaowei before the black armored guards can pry out secrets. Su Ning rushes him across the rooftops, and the assassin answers by flinging a spread of knives charged with force. The knives fail to touch him, but Su Ning feels the force in them and realizes the assassin is a Qi realm warrior. The masked man turns and runs, and as Su Ning keeps chasing, he notices this Qi realm assassin is weaker and slower than expected. The masked assassin keeps throwing knives backward while running, but Su Ning dodges them cleanly and closes the distance anyway. Seeing he is finally within reach, Su Ning hardens his skin and swings his blade with full commitment. The assassin is forced to turn and block with a spare dagger, but the instant the weapons clash, Su Ning's force attack shocks his arm with pain. Su Ning also feels the assassin's force in the clash and realizes it is too weak to break through his hardened defense. Once Su Ning senses the assassin panic, he presses forward with non-stop slashes until the man can no longer hold his ground. The assassin finally breaks under the pressure, his dagger flies out of his hand, and Su Ning's blade cuts his forearm. Instead of finishing him, Su Ning smashes the assassin in the forehead with his elbow because he wants to capture him alive. The dazed assassin bites down to stay conscious, but Su Ning mistakes the movement for a suicide attempt with hidden poison. Not willing to lose his prisoner, Su Ning instantly grabs the assassin's jaw and dislocates it. After securing him, Su Ning tears away the mask and sees only an ordinary middle-aged man underneath. Su Ning checks the man's mouth and realizes he guessed wrong because there is no hidden poison sac there. He concludes that powerful poison is not practical here, since strong martial artists can resist ordinary toxins and truly effective ingredients would cost too much to waste. On the rooftop, Su Ning finally confirms the assassin has no hidden poison sac, and that small detail tells him this valuable magic faction fighter can be taken alive. He immediately judges the man as a Qi realm operative with real value, which means this arrest could crack open the bigger mystery behind the recent magic faction activity. Su Ning also realizes something worse. These local magic faction cases are probably backed by a hidden force the black armored guards still have not even noticed. Not trusting a half-dazed enemy, Su Ning drives in two heavy blows and knocks the assassin fully out before moving him. From the brief clash, Su Ning can already tell this man is weaker in body and raw force than a normal Qi realm fighter, likely because his magic technique gave fast progress at the cost of a shaky foundation. With that, Su Ning throws the captive down from the roof, jumps after him, and starts dragging him back toward Kaishika execution grounds. When Su Ning returns to the execution grounds, Song Wei rushes up in shock, because Su Ning had vanished so suddenly during the chaos that none of them could keep up. Su Ning wastes no time and orders the assassin cuffed, sent back to Maple Lane, and locked up in the same place as Nia Xiaowei. He then tells Tao Qingping to report the appearance of a Qi realm magic faction assassin to the higher-ups at once, because this case has become far too serious to keep local. The townspeople stay packed around the grounds, thrilled by a day that turned from a normal beheading into surrender, pursuit, and a live capture far more dramatic than they expected. Because Kanyun County has been protected so well for years, most of the crowd does not grasp how dangerous a magic faction case really is and only comes away feeling even safer under the black armored guards. Elsewhere in the commander room, Wei Changqing meets with three captains after yet another local magic faction warrior is exposed, this time a street vendor who suddenly snapped and killed people before a patrol subdued him. Wei Changqing bluntly tells them the pattern is now undeniable. 3 ordinary citizens have learned magic techniques, which means a hidden magic faction is operating in Kanyan County and the guards still know almost nothing about it. Xia Yuanxing can only say their team has made some progress and arrested suspects, but when Wei Changqing presses for actual results, the room falls quiet because there really are none yet. That stalemate breaks when a guard rushes in with news from Maple Lane. The murderer there was indeed a magic faction warrior, and he has already been captured. At first Wei Changqing only notes that solving the case in less than a day is fast, but the next sentence changes everything. The guard reveals that Su Ning also captured a Qi Realm magic faction warrior alive, and all 4 senior officers snap their eyes to him in disbelief. Once the guard confirms the captive is really alive and being held at Maple Lane, Wei Changqing finally smiles because this prisoner could expose the entire hidden network. He immediately assigns Chu Daoyou, the best torture specialist in the Black Armored Guards, to take over the interrogation and pry every secret out of the prisoner. Wei Changqing openly praises Su Ning for this result, and Chu Daoyou looks deeply pleased because everyone knows Su Ning is the subordinate he values most. Xia Yuanxing even admits he had seen something special in Su Ning during selection and now regrets not pulling him into Campsite 2 before Chu Daoyou did. Chu Daoyou leaves at once for Maple Lane, and Wei Changqing orders the other captains back out to widen the dragnet and seize every credible suspect. After they go, the messenger nervously admits he held back one more report because it was unrelated to the magic faction case. What he withheld is stranger than urgent. A young man and woman have arrived at the gates asking to see Wei Changqing, and they say they are from Yuning City. That name makes Wei Changqing pause, then he tells the guard to bring them in so he can see who came all the way from his home city. The answer comes with a cheerful shout of uncle as 2 well-born teenagers enter smiling, and Wei Changqing is immediately caught off guard before warming at the sight of them. These visitors are Wei Binglin and Wei Zicheng, 2 children of his family line whom he practically watched grow up, so their sudden arrival hits him like an unexpected piece of home. Wei Zicheng teases that since their uncle stayed away from Yuning City for so long, they had no choice but to come find him themselves. Wei Binglin backs her up in the same playful tone, and the old commander's hard edges melt because these 2 have long filled the family space missing from his unmarried life. Wei Changqing seats them personally and even brews tea, but he still asks the same question again because he knows they did not come this far just for a visit. Wei Zicheng tries the same excuse again, but Wei Changqing immediately pokes holes in it by pointing out that real visitors would have written ahead instead of appearing without warning. Caught out, the siblings trade awkward looks and give up on pretending. Wei Binglin finally admits they did come to see their uncle, but the real reason was to help Wei Zicheng get away and breathe for a while. When Wei Changqing asks what pressure she is escaping, Wei Zicheng explains that her father recently pushed her into contact with Wen Rinjin, the Source faction genius, and the whole arrangement makes her deeply uncomfortable. Wei Changqing takes that seriously and says at 16 she may be old enough on paper, but her nature is not suited to being rushed toward marriage like this. So Wei Zicheng came here to hide from both her father and Wen Rinjin, and she cheekily adds that her brother is here to relax too after all his hard martial practice. That excuse immediately backfires, because Wei Changqing turns on Wei Binglin and bluntly repeats what his father always writes in letters: he is talented, lazy, and wasting it. Once he pieces it together, Wei Changqing calls them out for sneaking away from home without permission, because their father would never have approved this trip. But the sight of their guilty faces reminds him of his own youth, so his tone softens and he agrees to let them stay for a while, though only for 2 months before they must return. Both of them brighten at once, happy to win even a temporary escape from the troubles waiting back in Yuning City. Wei Changqing then asks how many guards escorted them here, because the road from Yuning City to Kanyan County cuts through dangerous mountains and valleys. When Wei Binglin says they brought only 4 guards, 2 at Mortal Realm's 7th stage and 2 at 8th, Wei Changqing thinks that is nowhere near enough for that route. The danger bothers him enough that he decides when they return, he will personally accompany them back to Yuning City himself. That shocks the pair, because it means their uncle is finally thinking about going home too, even if he says he must finish his official duties first. Then he gives them one more plan. After resting 2 days, they should pay a visit to Senior Lu, the secluded Luijian, an old friend of their grandfather living in the Yunza Mountains. The siblings agree, and Wei Changqing promises to arrange someone to lead them there in a few days. 2 days later at Maple Lane, Chu Daoyou personally removes both the captured assassin and Ye Xiaowei from the guard station, taking control of the key prisoners himself. Before leaving, Chu Daoyou openly praises Su Ning for easing the pressure on the upper ranks and giving the magic faction investigation its first real break. Even after the prisoners are gone, Su Ning cannot relax, because a stubborn sense of danger keeps pressing on him like something larger is closing over the county. He reads the latest internal report, and finds no new word on the magic faction, which only sharpens his frustration because either the interrogation is failing or the real results are being kept above his level. That missing information pushes him to a blunt conclusion. His unease comes from still being too weak to reach deeper into what is happening. He had felt more confident after entering the Qi realm and drawing a lieutenant's monthly resources, but now his mindset is changing again toward one urgent question: how to get stronger faster. That train of thought is interrupted when Feng Xigua knocks and reports that 2 visitors are outside carrying Wei Changqing's peza. Su Ning is puzzled but tells Feng Xigua to bring them in immediately. The visitors turn out to be the same noble youths from Yuning City, and Suning can tell at a glance that they come from the same high family background as Wei Changqing. After a polite exchange of names, Suning learns they are Wei Binglin and Wei Zicheng, and that Wei Changqing is their uncle. That family connection explains everything, and Suning's first impression stays good because despite their status, both siblings speak to him with unusual courtesy instead of arrogance. Then Wei Binglin gets straight to the point and asks Suning for a favor. They want him to guide them into the depths of the Yunza Mountains. At the guard station, Suning is caught off guard when Wei Binglin asks him to guide them into the deep Yunza Mountains. The siblings explain that Wei Changqing recommended Suning because he knows the mountains well and is worth trusting. Suning still warns them that Yunza is full of poisonous creatures and even rumored demon beasts, so going too deep is no small trip. He adds that anyone heading into the inner mountains should at least be at Mortal Realm's 7th stage. Instead of backing down, Wei Binglin calmly reveals that both he and Wei Zicheng have already reached Mortal Realm's 7th stage and brought guards for safety. That answer genuinely shocks Suning, because these two look younger than him yet already stand above Tao Village's patriarch. Wei Zicheng explains that the difference comes from the Wei clan's resources in Yuning City, early training from age 6, and strong natural talent. She also tells Suning that reaching the Qi realm in a place like Kangyun County already proves his talent, especially if he later enters the Source faction. Feeling that the siblings are capable and genuinely respectful, Suning agrees to lead them into the mountains. Wei Binglin immediately says the horses are already waiting outside and asks if they can leave at once. Outside, Suning stops at the sight of towering battle horses so imposing that he has never seen anything like them before. Wei Binglin explains that these mounts carry demon beast blood, which makes them stronger than ordinary horses but still docile once trained. Suning tests one for himself, finds it steady under him, and the group rides out with 2 stronger guards following behind. The speed of the ride hits Suning like a rush, and in less than an hour they reach the foot of Yunza Mountains. At the mountain edge, Wei Zicheng casually remarks that no wonder Senior Lu chose to settle in a place this wild, and Suning realizes they are here to find someone living deep inside Yunza. When Wei Binglin asks if he knows the way to Luohua Lake, Suning confirms that he does and takes the lead again. Riding through the rough mountain paths turns out to be surprisingly smooth on these powerful mounts, and the party pushes past the outer ring into the inner mountains. Once they enter the inner area, one guard lights a special incense to keep the mountain's poisonous insects away. Wei Zicheng explains that the smoke is mostly for Suning, because natural poison in these mountains can still be deadly even to warriors. A little later, Suning spots a jasper grass on a rock face and can't hide his interest. Instead of minding the delay, the Wei siblings tell him to take whatever useful resources he finds, since they already owe him this favor. Suning climbs over to pluck the jasper grass, and his hidden martial arts panel quietly marks it as 6 units of energy. He refuses to absorb it on the spot, because exposing that secret in front of the Wei siblings would be far too risky. Just as he stows the herb away, movement in the grass reveals a patterned snake, and Suning instantly jumps back. He returns to the group without incident, and they keep riding deeper toward Luohua Lake. As the fog thickens around them, Suning's vision shrinks to only a few steps ahead. Wei Zicheng suddenly flicks her whip into the weeds and pulls out another spirit medicine that Suning never even noticed. She casually hands the herb to Suning, making it clear the siblings are perfectly fine with him profiting from this trip. The deeper they go, the more poisonous the fog becomes, until even Suning starts worrying about what it might do to his body. Seeing that, Wei Binglin gives him a valuable clearing dan, and Suning immediately swallows it for protection. After another hard push through the mist, the party finally breaks out onto a high ridge overlooking Luohua Lake. What they see below is unsettlingly peaceful, with ordinary beasts and demon beasts wandering the lakeside together, as if their natural instincts have been erased. Even the well-traveled Wei siblings are visibly stunned, and Wei Binglin can only guess that this impossible calm is because of Senior Lu. For Suning, this is the first time seeing true demon beasts, and he can instantly feel that they are different from any normal animal. Then a cyan raptor circles overhead, and the force from its wings alone batters the trees and makes Suning shield his face. The 2 guards instantly raise their bows, but the raptor only gives one piercing cry before soaring back into the clouds. A moment later, every beast by the lake goes still and turns toward the forest, as if something far more important has arrived. From that shadowed forest, a thin old man walks out with a wooden cane, and the whole valley feels like it is answering to him. When he lightly shakes the cane, Suning's horse and all the others begin moving toward the lake on their own. Suning instinctively wants to jump off, but Wei Binglin stops him and explains that Senior Lu is personally guiding them in. That only leaves Suning more shaken, because a man who can command demon beasts and control their mounts from afar feels far beyond ordinary martial arts. For the first time, Suning seriously wonders if the old stories about a realm above mortal cultivation might actually be true. When the horses finally stop by the lake, Suning sees the man clearly at last, a skinny old farmer-looking elder with tan skin, a burlap shirt, and a simple wooden cane. Wei Binglin, Wei Zicheng, and their guards immediately drop to one knee and salute him as Grandpa Lu, so Suning follows suit. Lui Jian asks if they are descendants of the Wei clan, and the siblings respectfully introduce themselves as Wei Qingyuan's children who came to visit on their uncle's request.